Well, we are here once again with a Pichy and Palscast discussing film. Once again, this is Pichy. We have... I'm not going to bother with the A-listers. It's my friends Louis and Matt. Hi there, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Now I've been outed.
You've been found out.
Been
Gonna be
doxed.
hunting.
I think
Who
we're
is...
supposed to do this like Pichy and Pal Season 2. I think people find out the real names. You've jumped the gun here.
Oh, the secret identities have ruined it all.
Yeah.
We're gonna get the Who Shot Pichy arc out of the way ruined now. No time.
You have to pace these
It's
things
okay.
out.
No, it'll be retconned. It'll turn out this season was a dream.
Ah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I've seen that storyline a lot, actually.
We did have a couple of It Was All a Dreams tonight. From memory. Maybe only just one.
I think tonight was all just a memory.
There's some stuff I would not like to have a memory of.
Well, it's a memory that will be with you forever. This week, we do in fact have a live studio audience. Make some noise, studio audience. Woo! There we are. Thank you. This wound up being quite the evening. I think I'll start off with the opening question that I used last week. How are you all?
I'm well.
I'm good. I'm better now after we saw some stuff. Not all of it was good.
Your opening statement last time, Matt, was the word fraudulence. And if we had just done heavy metal, I'm pretty sure that you would have been leaning towards using that, but you found another F word to describe your experience tonight, didn't you?
Well, my experience with heavy metal, the F word I used was filth. Yeah. There's a lot of not nice words I've used for heavy
Why?
metal. There's something, I had no feelings of fraudulence watching heavy metal. I didn't feel a fraud at all watching that garbage. So, yeah.
Alright, so let's get into it. We watched the second part of what I refer to as the Fantasia Suite. This is partially an excuse. Let's get into what the word pretentious means. Because it's this word which is often associated with arty-farty types. But really what pretentiousness is about is ascribing excessive importance to less important things, is the core of pretentiousness. And so, I am being pretentious by tying heavy metal into some interesting, ambitious failures, but it's an excuse to make people watch heavy metal because it's an amazing experience you will never forget.
Amazing is not quite how I would put it, but...
Perhaps awesome, as in you are filled with reverent fear.
I hope to forget it.
I mostly just felt, like, dirty. That's where the filth comes in. And to be honest, I just felt... There was no awe or excitement. It was just, like, generally just feeling, like, dirty. And I needed to take a shower through it.
Well, there's going to be more anime coming this year. So this was a taste... It's about acclimatizing you to getting used to embracing and reveling in the filth. Adopting some of the abyss as your own, so the abyss does not claim you in whole.
I'm gonna be honest, this isn't what I was expecting from heavy metal. I was expecting more heavy metal.
Yeah.
For one thing.
You're expecting any heavy metal at all,
Yeah.
rather than 30 seconds of Ronnie James Dio era Black Sabbath.
Yeah, and instead we got this.
Yes, so we watched heavy metal, we watched Robot Carnival, and finally Fantasia 2000, thus freeing us from Pichy subjecting everyone he knows to animated anthology films, at least for a while.
Well, how many more can they really be after?
Well, there's Heavy Metal 2000.
Oh my god.
Wait, they did.
I really wish you didn't tell me that. Don't tell people on the pod who are listening to the podcast. Don't watch Heavy Metal. Don't watch Heavy Metal 2000. I haven't watched Heavy Metal 2000, but I don't think I need to.
You've been warned, and you're going to heed it.
You really should.
So let's get into Heavy Metal from 1981. It was distributed by Paramount, of all people, and was a Canadian film. A lot of French-Canadian influence in the visuals of this film. And Heavy Metal magazine was basically a sci-fi anthology magazine. It published a lot of short stories, some serialized works, and a fair amount of comics. They were all very late 70s, early 80s countercultural stuff. Lots of sex, drugs, rock and roll. Goofy things like that. Hey, man. And this really gets followed up in the film where it's trying to... It feels a lot like it's specifically being countercultural towards the Filmation visual style. That's things like He-Man and She-Ra and Thundercats, which were blowing up around this time. And so, much like how Allegro non troppo was This Ain't Your Dad's Disney, this ain't your dad's Saturday morning bullshit. This is bullshit for adults. You like boobs? You're gonna get some.
It was definitely bullshit.
Yeah. I guess I always, when I think about countercultural, I guess this isn't quite what I have in mind. I usually have something a bit more, I don't know, more mature, I guess. Like,
I should dig up for you various forms of pirate comics that were around from the 40s through 60s, where people would just randomly sketch up and distribute printouts of things like, hey, I draw a little comic where Donald Duck is gay.
yeah.
It's that sort of vein.
I guess. I mean, I would say, like, when I think of counterculture, I think of more like, trying to engage with something you don't really like that much, and something, I don't know, I guess this is just very childish and very teenager. This is like, if this is counterculture in the way like a teenager telling fuck off to their parents is countercultural.
Like when I talked about This Ain't Your Dad's Disney with Allegro non troppo, it was this very brief comment and kind of in line with the carny vibe that's presented by the film itself. Whereas in this case, this is, some horny weirdos writing some weird horny weirdo stuff. So, let's just get into it. We'll go through these segment by segment since they're anthology films, just like last time. The first segment was entitled Soft Landing. This was about the Elon Musk SpaceX launch. For it detailed a vehicle in space, which then drops out a car, which then lands on Earth and drives to a house.
I had no idea this was actually a section. I thought this was just the intro. I didn't realize this actually counted.
It is credited as a section with its own writer, director, and producer.
Oh, well, I guess all I can really think of is, I mean, it set the tone pretty quickly. I mean, there's the first 10-15 seconds where you think you might be watching something of
art.
Of any quality.
Yes. Yeah, of any quality.
Something that's going to
quality.
mean something and do things.
Yeah, and then immediately the car drops out, and you're like, oh, okay. It doesn't prepare you for just how shit this is going to be, but it does. It sets the tone fairly well.
And then the orb.
Yes, the orb.
Yes, well, before we get to the orb, I need to tell you something about who was Actually, first, the director. Well, for this segment, I'm not super good on various obscure French-Canadian animators, but I do know some of the credits involved with this film. Jimmy T. Murakami was the director of this sequence. Did either of you ever see the BBC Narnia miniseries growing up?
That's not an animated thing, right?
They were live-action adaptations of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, and I think that's it. There might have been there was a Prince Caspian, I'm pretty sure. What's important is there is superimposed animation throughout these, usually for the more spiritual elements. Those are by the guy who did this car falling out of the space shuttle.
I do remember watching really old Narnia kind of mini-series, whatever they were, at school. I don't remember the animation part. I remember how terrible it was when they flew on Aslan. No. That's great. You will believe a lion can fly. Unfortunately, I don't remember any of the animation though, so that unfortunately doesn't help us here. But I do remember them.
They're kind of cool, and I guess kind of cool is an apt description of this sequence. Now, this and the introduction of the orb that we'll get to, they have a writing credit as well. Dan O'Bannon. He wrote a film in 1979 entitled Alien.
Oh my god.
What?
The faces that I'm seeing right now, there's this
Turn off the podcast. People can't know. They can't know this. You're just smirching a good man's name if he wrote Alien.
Really?
The incredulity on Louis' face and his tone right then, in comparison to Matt wants to die.
I can't believe this.
This is retroactively hurting his Alien experiences. And he saw Alien in a cinema again last year.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best film-going experiences that we all had last year.
That was
really
great.
good. Yeah.
And now you're going to be thinking of that car falling out of that space shuttle, driving through that cornfield, and giving to his child in the second sequence entitled Grimaldi, the introduction of our good friend, the Loch Na. So the Loch Na has an uncredited voice in the film by Percy Rodriguez, who was a Canadian voice actor, who was a fixture of Canadian children's television from the 50s through the 80s. So when I talk about this being, in some ways, trying to be, well, this ain't your dad's cartoons for Saturday morning, that's the sort of touch which indicates why I say that. Hey guys, we're getting this well-known voice in your children's TV, and he will voice the unspeakable evil that is a green orb that melts people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, by Lochnar you mean inconsistent death orb.
It's just a sphere of annihilation, man, and sometimes you just gotta be Goku and resist those things.
Yeah, it was a bit like the One Ring and
The One Ring...
combined.
the One Ring is the most ambiguous set of abilities. Some sort of general stat buffs with a penalty to sanity and whiz.
And sometimes phases you into a different dimension.
I guess the One Ring couldn't actually physically fly like Lochnar can. Like Lochnar can actually.
Yeah, the Lochnar can do whatever it wants,
Yeah.
except for win.
Yeah, it can exist in multiple planes of existence and in its memories.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to the ending. So yeah, that scene of the astronaut stepping out of the car and introducing the Lochnar to his daughter is considered its own sequence. It's entitled Grimaldi. And we need to talk about the girl. So the framing that this uses for the rest of the film is that all the various short stories are being told by the Lochnar to this girl to scare her into believing that he is the most evil, baddest green orb in the multiverse. And she responds to this by being that one very stunned guy in Italian Spider-Man who just points at the terrifying thing happening in the room off screen and going, oh, while the music swells. That is her role for the bulk of this film.
She's Stress Man from Compatibility.
Oh man, we got some deep cuts here tonight. And this, of course, leads to the first demonstrations of the Lochnar's power after melting her father. A noir section in near future New York, starring John Candy.
The most cynical, like more cynical than most noirs are. Like, not only is everybody out self-serving, even the main character, even the femme fatale, everybody, yeah,
is just in it for themselves. This is one of the bleakest dystopias in film, really, because it's just 1984. I don't mean the George Orwell novel. I mean the year where Reagan has taken office, and he's just dismantling public systems, and New York's just this crap hole where everyone is a racist, selfish, petty asshole. The United Nations has been explicitly replaced with cheap housing. It's a mess.
yeah.
I mean, the little green man getting carried by cops, yelling, I'm an American citizen, believe me. That is quite funny.
Yeah, damn illegal aliens.
Yeah, I talked about feeling that filth word, just generally feeling dirty watching this entire thing, but I think especially this section just feels grimy.
Yeah, grimy is a better word than dirty, I feel, here. This one is intentionally... this one's intentionally... that there is an air of exploitation here, because it's being this ultra bleak, miserable, near-future New York, where you've got jet taxis, but everything sucks.
Yeah.
And, armed robbery is so common that taxis come with built-in vaporizers to protect their drivers.
Yeah,
Which is built with a traditional Hollywood setup, reminder, and payoff throughout the sequence. And leads to my favorite visual gag here, where someone tries to stick up John Candy, and so he uses the inbuilt vaporizer to kill them, confiscates the weapon, and just puts it in a glove compartment where there's all sorts of confiscated weapons, including a hand grenade. So someone tried to rob a taxi with a hand grenade.
Probably from the back seat too.
Yes. This is a very good plan with no flaws whatsoever.
It's probably just some random hobo that probably found it on the ground somewhere and was like, "This is what I got."
Yeah, man.
But it's a very funny visual, definitely.
Yeah.
A very funny visual in a section that I feel was I just hated looking at. This segment.
This film is ugly in general.
Yeah.
There are moments where it comes close to looking nice, particularly towards the end. I'll talk about the artistic influences there when we get to it.
Yeah, there's like a weird mix of like some like hand stuff and then rotoscoping as well.
Oh yeah, there's
And then
rotoscoping all through the
sorts of,
film.
like wonky, like squishing and just generally flowing of limbs and skin.
There's using squash and stretch as using it to essentially accentuate an idea in the same way that you would use fixed tableaus and things like theatre, particularly French styles and things like No and Kabuki. Whereas this just things wibble and wobble and move in a way that feels really disconcerting. It's if you've ever seen this is something that happens a lot in some forms of French animation and particularly in Slavic animation. And if you've ever seen the Philips CDI Legend of Zelda games, this first full storied sequence looks a lot like the CDI Zeldas, and that's not a compliment.
Yeah, even if this was a story, a heartwarming story about like a guy taking care of a puppy or something like that, it'd still just be awful to watch. It's just a nasty, gnarly segment to watch. Like what's on the screen is not good.
Nope. And the events and the ultimate ending isn't very good either. We sell a priceless artifact to some criminals, and then he has to murder the girl because she tried to murder him.
Yeah.
And then he makes a cynical quip about it being a 2-day fare on his taxi with a big tip. Yeah. What a great story.
It's so cynical to the point of not really making logical sense. There's nothing about the lady character that would suggest that she's a femme fatale until the last 10 seconds. She doesn't act like one, even when she's not talking to the main character, the candy person.
Let me check the name again. I always forget.
John Candy.
It's Henry Canyon is the character's name. In my notes, immediately written under that is it's John Candy.
It's John Candy, yeah. But yeah, she because even before she meets him, she's acting in a she acts
Damsel in
like
distress.
a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
It just comes out of completely nowhere.
When Baron Harkonnen murders her father.
Yes, when Baron Harkonnen murders her father, and she's like scared and
she's like what were they called? They're gonna kill me. They want the Lochnar or something?
Yeah, they want the Lochnar, so they're going to kill me, and then she just sells the Lochnar to them.
And then passes out in the back of the taxi.
Yes.
And then he tries to pawn her off to the police.
Yes. He does try to just throw her out, and the police just say, nah, we need $1,000 bribery to do that for you. Everything is the most miserable and cynical option possible for its scene.
And they have the funniest handing over of a glass.
Yes.
Where it just goes through the screen and then suddenly his hand is her hand as she's taking the glass.
What was with that? That was very strange. Actually, there was a lot of stuff where the screen would just go black for a little. There was a lot of transitions where
just cut to black transitions.
Yeah, that felt off.
We can't find a logical way to block the scene, so we'll just hard cut and it's a different moment.
Yeah.
The pacing to this was also very weird. I was expecting, because this is called heavy metal and we're doing the Fantasia Suite, I was expecting it to, at some point, some heavy metal would start and we would have some cool visuals.
Nope.
And no,
You just get some awkward choices of music. I can't even remember which ones they were. As you get a terrible car chase, which does at least have a guy. This moment that we were discussing as it happened is something that's rare and always feels a bit interesting, even though strictly speaking it's dumb. Of bad guys failing because they made a mistake.
Yeah.
You're in a high-stakes car chase and you see these constant tense spots. And no, these guys just screw up the stunt and they crash into a wall and die.
Yeah. These are the goons that are...
The goons of the mafia who the thing is then just sold to.
Yeah.
By the way, the Lochnar then murders the mafia once it's been sold to them.
Yeah.
Because this is what the Lochnar does. It murders people.
Yeah.
It makes them melt.
It was
except for when it doesn't.
Yeah.
Again, well, no, it wasn't all for nothing. John Candy apparently got 300,000 buckaroonies. So.
Yeah. Chrono dollars.
Unless, of course, I was wondering whether he would look in the back seat and realize that by frying... Because she tries to take the money for herself and then... he presses the button on the taxi again.
In the death ray kills the money.
He has just as an effective death ray as the Lochnar has in the back of his taxi.
Well, they established that it doesn't destroy the things that you're holding because it didn't destroy the gun.
Oh, that's true, but I thought that was because he had the gun over the seat So yeah, I don't know if he's gonna turn because he destroyed their clothes. So I wonder if he's gonna turn around and he's gonna realize that actually the money has been vaporized as well.
Well, this is the most cynical universe.
Well, he would deserve it. He's not like a good guy.
Well, it's okay. There's something positive next time. The short film, Den, starring John Candy. Now, before we talk about the plot of this film, I want to lay down a bit of context and setting here. In Japan, over the last 10 years, especially the last 5-ish years, there's been a rise of a genre which is known in writing as isekai, or another world. It's just stories involving parallel worlds that say there's a secret world inside the earth, there's complex video games that you can be trapped in, you've been warped to another mystical fantasy land or a parallel universe. They're all labeled as isekai. There's also a subset of isekai known... I can't remember the Japanese term, but basically it's about reincarnating. So, it's not just that you get warped there. Essentially, your soul gets transposed into a much more physically apt body in this parallel world. These are so ubiquitous and so common, and have caught on fire so hard with writers and with the audiences that China actually banned the reincarnation type because they were concerned about it encouraging suicides of kids who are sad and miserable, and sometimes go, well, maybe if I kill myself I can go to the happy parallel world. I mean, if you've ever seen old Portal to Gensokyo copy pastas in certain English-speaking nerd communities, then that idea has certainly popped up before. And a lot of young writers' competitions in Japan have started to ban anything involving parallel worlds. If you want good examples of this at the moment, Log Horizon is a good example using the MMO variety. Gate is not a good example. It's late, and I've forgotten some other good examples that I was going to do. Log Horizon's pretty cool. So, with all this about a current trend in Japanese and Asian writing at the moment, tell us the story of Den, please, someone.
I can't remember exactly how it starts. It's a young boy in his bedroom and he finds the Lochnar.
He does.
And then...
he strikes it with lightning.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's experimenting with natural electricity.
Yes, that's the wording.
And puts the Lochnar on his bookshelf, and then some lightning happens, and the Lochnar gets struck by lightning, which then drags him through a portal into another world, and he goes inside a buff dude's body.
Yeah, he's reincarnated in a parallel world as a buff dude.
Yeah.
This is from 1981. Not only is this funny...
I mean, it actually reminded me a lot of the Barsoom.
Well, that's what I was going to get to as the ultimate punchline here. Is that, so we have this Asian trend of isekai. Here we are in 1981 French Canada with an isekai reincarnation story, and it is in turn riffing on a story from 1912 by Edgar Rice Burroughs, which is a reincarnation isekai story about getting warped to Mars.
Yeah, I mean, right down to it's basically on Mars, and it has all the weird not humans on Mars. Yeah.
They don't have the multiple limbs, but yeah, it's Barsoom.
Yeah.
And so my point here is when kids are young, they will experience things which will seem familiar to you, but for them it's completely new, and so it will be exciting to them. The other thing is genres and certain storytelling conventions are probably older than you think they are. And there's certain forms of dumb schlock that have resonated throughout history.
Well, it's
Princess of Mars is some pretty great dumb schlock, though.
So is this.
Yes.
It has the most droll, gay-coded villain ever.
Yeah.
It has, it also has probably one of all of these segments. It has the most humor in it.
Yes.
And it was it was at that point in my experience of watching this entire movie where I was wondering whether the whole thing might have just been a bit of a parody. There might have been some self-awareness in general throughout the whole thing. It didn't turn out to be the case, but in this one, I think it really helps.
Yeah, it's so egregious, just hitting those male power fantasy beats. Just Suddenly he's super buff. Suddenly he can breathe for 5 minutes underwater.
Yeah.
He rescues a woman whose response is to immediately have sex with him. She is then immediately kidnapped, so he can then sneak into a castle with another sexy queen and immediately have sex with her.
Yeah.
Also, we then have that wonderful bit where Totally Not Gay guy just sends him some minions, and you're thinking, oh, these guys can apparently speak some partial English. Hello there, I'm actually quite a verbose minion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had a lot of little moments like that, like the moment when the queen and the gay troll villain are like fighting over the lock.
Yes.
No, it's my luck. No,
It's my Lochnar.
And when he's the gay troll villain is
You're
giving
dead.
he's got a proposition for the main hero
Yes.
to go rescue her and try and get his Lochnar. And he's like, well, what if I refuse? And he's like, you die, she dies, everyone
We all
dies.
die.
We just all
Everyone
die.
dies.
What's the hero's response to that again? It's like,
Oh, it sounds reasonable to me.
reasonable to me. Okay, fair enough.
It's like, the whole time through this, it's John Candy trying to sound like a skinny geek putting on a tough guy voice, which is itself a bit of a trip, but at the same time you also get this internal monologue going on, where he's just being a geek. And this leads to amazing moments, like when he first meets the buxom, beautiful damsel in distress, who's fully naked and asking for sex, and the internal monologue says, wow, what beautiful eyes!
She's completely naked, by the way.
Yeah, it's perfectly on the nose there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird that this one had those moments of self-awareness that kind of showed that they kind of knew what kind of shock they were making, but the other ones did not. I find that kind of strange.
That's part of the product of doing a collaborative anthology where each short film is itself got its own writers and crew.
Yeah, because you get some who are... These guys are probably self-aware of what they were making. The other guys may not be.
Some of them may have been true believers in thinking they are actually making something
Heavy
clever.
metal.
Well, they weren't.
Oh, none of this is metal. There are nowhere near enough skulls.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Not enough portals to hell. Or wizards.
Yeah.
Severe lack of wizards.
I mean, unless you argue the Lochnar's a wizard.
That's a bad eldritch horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, the One Ring isn't a wizard. Yeah. So,
Yeah, the One Ring isn't a wizard. This is just a sphere of annihilation that talks.
yeah.
So John Candy defeats the bad guys, flies away with the sexy woman on a bug.
Yeah. Don't you want to go home?
Nope. Correct answer. On Earth, I'm nobody, but here, I'm powerful. No. Yeah, it is just here. I'm Den.
Yeah.
Like, what?
As his name, he's like, here I'm the big buff guy. It's like in my own world.
Who decided his name was Den?
He did?
He did? He did? Because I didn't actually remember
Or did the character already have... Was Den already someone there? Did the Lochnar kill the other guy's consciousness to put the geeky guy in it?
Oh my
What
God.
Maybe
happened
they
to
swapped
his,
brains. Maybe
what
it was
happened to-
Freaky Friday.
Maybe. Oh, so he's... So big buff dude's soul is actually in geeky dude's body in the real world?
It's either that or it's like the Omicron Nomad Soul that David Cage's first ever game that was about. That's probably one of the only things.
I'm impressed, Matt. You found a way to make a discussion of heavy metal worse.
Yeah, I found a way. Well, they're on garbage kind of feeds into garbage, doesn't it? So,
Different forms of exploitation right here.
yeah.
This then leads to the Lochnar shrinking and floating up into space as little marble picked up by one Hanover fist for the Captain Stern sequence. Eugene Levy denying rape allegations,
37 counts.
along with many murders. And so there's murders, there's rapes, there's
Are there misdemeanors or anything in there?
yeah, there's a bunch of misdemeanors and like larceny and things, and one moving violation.
Yeah. Murder, arson, jaywalking, the trope. Just completely straight up.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's a perfectly fine gag.
Yeah, I suppose.
So Captain Stern is on trial for his many, many crimes. The lawyer's telling him to just do a guilty plea. The best that he can get is that they'll bury him in secret so people won't desecrate the grave.
That was funny. That was genuine.
But he told you
Funny.
he's got an angle. His plan is to bribe one of the witnesses, but unfortunately the witness becomes influenced by the Lochnar and goes on a murderous rampage. Though shortly before that happens, early on the shots are all just of Stern and Charlie, his lawyer. Halfway through them, for some reason a floating eyeball with arms pops up and just starts hanging around in the frame.
Yeah.
And then as the Hanover Fist becomes a big monster man and starts trying to kill Stern, for some reason this eyeball with arms starts making cartoony noises and helping Captain Stern. It feels like they're trying to riff on animal buddies in children's cartoons, but it just comes in out of nowhere and hangs in your periphery and just baffles the mind.
Yeah, this one, like, it's not as horrible, say, as, like, the first one. And it's just kind of baffling. And
Yes.
it's very, very short as well. It didn't have barely much of a story. It didn't connect, like, the things that happened in it don't really connect in a coherent way.
No. So, he tries to bribe a witness. The witness turns into a monster man, implied to be due to the influence of the Lochnar. He then smashes up the space station they're on, while Reach Out by Cheap Trick, a song that has no connection to what's happening, plays. And then it turns out that this was all part of the act for bribing the witness. As he goes, "Thank you, you've cleared everyone away. Here's your $35,000.
Yeah.
And then he murders the guy.
Yeah.
Good job, Stern.
Two things.
Just two.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one, the Lochnar doesn't like murder anybody straight up in this sequence.
Nope.
I don't think.
It doesn't. It's not involved in the deaths of anyone.
No.
Because Stern would have killed Hanover Fist anyway. Because he's a horrible, horrible person.
But what? Does that mean the second thing is so did Hanover Fist is he always the Hulk, or did Lochnar make him the Hulk?
Yeah, this is one of those things where it's just like the story literally does not make any sense.
The framing implies that the Lochnar is causing this to happen, but then the fact that it's all an act and premeditated indicates that the Lochnar has nothing to do with this. So,
like we talked about
my evil transcends time.
Yeah, we talked about the lady, the femme fatale in the first one. Because being a femme fatale didn't make much sense. And this is just kind of like that to the extreme, where absolutely none of these particular... nothing in this segment makes any sense at all. And that
But
goes
But
against-
look at Captain Stern's chin. What a man.
Yep.
Think of this as a fanfic about Gaston from Beauty and the Beast in space. I guess that's the best read you can get of this, even though it predates Beauty and the Beast by about 11 years. B-17 is the next sequence. Some people, some soldiers, probably World War II, because it doesn't look like the sort of bomber that you would be using in Vietnam, even though they land in a jungle. Anyway, there is this very sweet-ass rotoscoped B-2 bomber. B-17 bomber, rather. The music is by Don Felder from the Eagles. Most of the crew gets shot, and then the Lochnar appears and turns them into skeleton zombies. The end.
Yeah.
This was the best one.
Yes.
This is by far the best one. This one, 3 didn't have this either, but
There's not much talking in this one either.
yeah, this one is the closest to how I would hope a story is told. Like it just has a very
And how a series of music video anthologies should go as well.
Yeah.
Just, it plays the music, the rhythm and the tone fits all these people dying. It feels, there's skeleton zombies. It feels very heavy metal.
Yeah, this is the out of all the groups involved, these are the guys who actually bothered to read the email they were sent.
yeah, and also know how
Facts.
to tell a story.
So yeah, B-17's pretty cool. So
Yes.
beautiful, so dangerous. Begins with a little grey man popping up in the Pentagon, and he's a bot to find sexy women who a bunch of stoned truckers can then abduct. But the stoned truckers don't want to abduct the woman. They just want to snort cocaine, preferably from their large sports oval lining device that puts the powdered lines out, and they've got one full of cocaine that they snort. The robot on their ship, on the other hand, really wants some sex. And so he seduces the woman, and off-screen seduces the woman, so they can do a bunch of pillow talk afterwards, which is really just a build to the sassy New Yorker saying, I want a Jewish wedding. Hey, is your robot dick circumcised?
Yeah.
Laugh.
Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, this one just had...
Roll credits.
There's just nothing to this one. There was nothing much of interest. There was nothing, like, at least story-wise, and not much visually either.
Which is so funny. Yeah. There's so little going on. It's just a bunch of vignettes that people thought would be funny.
Yeah.
I guess maybe Harold Ramis thought that would be funny. He's in this. He's the green alien who snorts cocaine and then crashes the ship when they try to park it. There's a fun sequence, very Hanna-Barbera-esque, where basically a little paper cutout depiction of the ship goes across a scrolling background and just shifts up and down on the frame. That's the most visually interesting moment in this sequence. I guess there's some kind of nice clunky space station designs at the end. But what's most interesting is the director was John Halas.
Who was John Halas?
The director of Animal Farm.
I've not seen Animal Farm.
So maybe it's just like retroactively ruining
everything.
It's ruining art forever.
It's like a grimy, just...
Kill your idols.
The movie
They
itself,
will embarrass you.
Maybe the true theme here, Matt, is that the movie Heavy Metal itself is the Loch Ness.
And instead of destroying, like, people...
It's destroying art.
Yeah, it just destroys art and memories of...
It rules all time and all art. Watch the Cremaster cycle.
So yeah, there's not much really to say about this one, other than it was not very memorable at all, and yeah.
I want a Jewish wedding.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, sorry, I just had a thought. Why would the Loch Ness tell any of these stories?
This part is the most baffling because the Loch Ness appears on the woman's brooch, resting with her bosom at the start.
The science,
and it's done as a swerve where it looks like the robot that they've sent out is grabbing her because the Loch Ness there. But nah, actually it's because the robot wants to get laid.
Yeah.
That's the joke. Why is the Loch Ness here? The transition's really bad as well because there was supposed to be another sequence here, which got cut because it wasn't finished. Thank God. There's not more heavy metal.
I don't know how much more I could have taken.
But this does lead to the Loch Ness taunting the girl in the house and discussing his all-powerful reach and how nothing can stop him. And so he will now show you how off in the distant future he will rule all. So he flies into a volcano. There's a bunch of pilgrims traveling to the volcano for some reason. It erupts green jelly. It's not good green jelly, like Shape of Water, symbolic synthesis of man and nature green jelly. That's a good film, by the way.
Stop talking about good things. This is ruining everything.
No, it's a bunch of green goop, and if it hits you, you turn into an evil green monster who wants to murder people. Black Sabbath's Here Comes the Mob plays for about 30 seconds, as a mob tries to murder a bunch of people in a town. They fly in on giant bats. They fire bazookas up in the air, nowhere near any of the buildings or people in the town. And they are trying to break into the palace with a bunch of old elders. They start to set up a battering ram, and it's only halfway through the battering ram breaking through the door that they realize maybe we should put the barricades that we have built in up.
They left everything to the last minute.
Yeah, these were not the most well-prepared people, considering that the main leader guy said that they knew that there was someone who was going to come. It was like a prophecy or something like that. They knew they were coming. And yet, they did everything last minute, even putting up the barricade on the door.
Well, they didn't have the prophecy. They just said, hey, maybe we should call in that legendary warrior, the last of her kind.
I mean, he left...
There is a promise in just ambiguous, cool voiceover. This is the intro to a Filmation cartoon called He-Man stuff. Later on, that brings up promises. These are just some old guys go, hey, maybe we should call in that person who's good at killing people when this army wants to kill us.
They waste time explaining what like the Terrakians are, and that Tala is the last one.
Tana
Tana is the last one.
Tana the last Terrakian.
The sun.
What's that about the last unicorn? We should watch that. It's better than heavy metal.
There is a unicorn in something else we watched.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Yeah, a lot of wasting time with this, and the door. Yeah. This one's
I mean, the door is a giant T, which set off this weird running gag of Char's counterattack connections. T's are very important. We'll get to this when I make you watch Char's counterattack at some point.
Yeah, we probably should say that the barricade is really, really funny. In that.
It's one of the funniest spots in the entire film.
Yeah. So they're trying to get in with the battering ram to try and knock it over, and to try and stop them, they send their minion, like a servant.
They send some guy with no pants.
Yes. And like a bold. I thought it was a lady, but either
one
way,
bold minion.
She tries or he tries to barricade the door with like some kind of giant T or something like that.
And they set it up by you've got to dust off and remove the gunk from some sort of little hatch and a switch to get it going.
Yeah.
And then the time it takes to get all that done, the door's already burst open and the T just crashes and gets obliterated immediately.
Such a completely I don't know why you'd bother animating that or coming up with that, or
why would you bother? Well, that's like why would you bother coming up with the blocking for all the fights that are to come?
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of bad decisions made in most of these segments,
but it's okay because they summon Tana, the last Terrakian.
Yeah, and that summoning does lead to, I'd say, the best song in this movie, and probably also the best looking visuals as we sweep across this landscape and we see this.
So we sweep across this bold landscape. She's flying on a pterodactyl. The art direction in this sequence is a tribute to the French artist Moebius, who made a number of contributions to Heavy Metal magazine. It was a big influence not only on this film, obviously, but also a lot of early Studio Ghibli work. So if we ever get around to watching Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, there are a lot of flying sequences which are in turn derived from the sort of visuals that Moebius liked to draw. It's like, this was around the time, he was drawing around when the Comics Code was happening in America. So it's just, you read an American comic and it's this 4-color square panels junk. And then you look anywhere else in the world and hey look, we've got a bunch of Osamu Tezuka. Moebius. Look at this cool medium of comics.
Yeah, this Moebius guy sounds a little too good for this movie, to be totally honest.
Oh, he's written some schlock.
Yeah, I guess.
That's followed by a very, very slow sequence of a sword and sorcery warrior woman putting on her utterly ridiculous chainmail bikini type outfit.
Yeah.
It's not even chainmail. It's not even a chainmail bikini. It is a strapless bra, a choker around her neck, a strap connecting her choker. A single strap that goes vertically down her body, covers up her nether regions, barely.
Yeah, but very barely.
And comes back up the back. Another strap around her waist that is purely to put her scabbard. And thigh-high socks and thigh-high red boots. A red shoulder pad on her right shoulder and a red glove.
Just one shoulder pad.
On her right hand.
If you've seen...
It's like a falconing glove, but she isn't a falconer.
Yeah, if you've seen like a female character in any sword and sorcery, or
this is it.
It's the crappiest. It's the crappy ones.
Yeah.
Cool.
No functional leather here.
But that said, the sequence of her putting it on, it's clear that it's someone who actually understands how you frame erotica, because a lot of this film, and there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of boobs.
Yeah.
It's all really visually unappealing.
Yeah.
This is the only time where it actually is remotely titillating or even engaging. At least it does one thing right. It exploits correctly.
Yeah. And this is probably the best part of the whole segment. And probably one of the better parts of the film, I guess. Just with the visual and the song together.
It's this cool dramatic swell, and you're thinking, yeah, she's gonna kick some ass now. In a cool and sexy way.
Yeah, they built her up pretty decent.
So then she has a plodding flight to a bar. You get a song by Devo, and she kills a bunch of dudes in the slowest, most boring way possible.
Yeah, everything kind of fell apart after that sequence was over, and she goes to I think she goes
she shows up late.
Yeah, she has a very late.
She shows up too late to save anyone.
Yeah.
Then goes to a bar, and very slowly moves her sword.
Yeah, It's difficult to know why she goes to this bar. This bar isn't like it's.
She
we don't
went,
know
I
where-
guess that she wanted to stay somewhere for the night.
Is
But
that
then
why
she
went
sees
there?
then she sees a MacGuffin. She sees the symbol that is on a thing that she found. But this serves no further bearing to the rest of the story.
Yeah. It's where this is where the segment kind of starts to fall apart. As soon as she finds that she's too late, and then she goes to that bar for no particular reason, finds something that seems important, but then ends up not important, and then she gets captured. Right, I think that's the next part.
Yes, so she's flying on a pterodactyl. It flies into a net. This results in both her and the pterodactyl being locked up. She's thrown into a pit. They then throw another guy into the pit in a much more effective way, where he actually goes into the bottomless part.
Yes.
She only gets out of this pit because her pterodactyl does a better job of fighting free than she does, and frees her.
Pterodactyl was the true hero.
It is. It then takes a bunch of hits, takes some bumps,
Yeah.
and
She's trying to escape.
yeah. So as they're trying to escape, that happens, and she fights the big bad minion of the Lochnar, and gets her ass kicked. And the pterodactyl is the one who saves her again. And then the bad guy slips on a banana peel, and she only just manages to make him hit himself with his own buzzsaw hand.
Yeah, he's got like a machine hand.
There's this film.
Yeah.
There's this film that is an 80s tribute called Turbo Kid.
Far better film.
that has an evil guy with a buzzsaw for a hand.
Yeah.
Whether it's actually referencing this guy is a question we might one day ask. Because remember, that is a Canadian production.
Yeah.
That guy is so much better as a worker and as a character.
Well, that movie is just
That movie is
extremely
a
good
delight.
compared to this one that's extremely shit. So, yeah.
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 So, yeah, that and all of that is not very good. Basically, it's because the action is not very good, because it's so slow.
Yeah. The action is slow, and the way it's blocked is not visually interesting as far as camera work goes.
Yeah.
And there's basically none of the principles of interesting animation employed here.
Yeah.
So there's techniques you can use like smearing, where you stylized motion blur to convey increased movement speed. There's no big wind-up anticipatory motion where the brain sees the motion and thinks, I know what's going to happen. They're going to swing the sword or do the punch. Let loose and away. And so your brain's already constructing an image in your mind. And so then, if you spend a lot of detail on those earlier parts and on the ending parts, all the bits in the middle can be done very quickly. This will give the impression of this snap motion. And your brain is filling in and thinking that it's more complex than it is. Nothing like that here. Just slow plodding. Everyone's moving in molasses.
Yeah. It's interesting to see that, you know, there's probably many techniques in animation to show a really good action scene, and none of those are done here. It's just so slow. Like, I feel like not only is it they did nothing special for the action sequences, but they just slowed down the animation that was there.
Yep.
And I don't understand why they did it like that. It looks terrible. It makes the scenes boring, and this is kind of about the action. Like, it's not going to be that interesting of a story.
It's a
there's not
swords and
drama
sorcery.
here.
You're here for some action schlock.
Yeah, and that action schlock is really poorly done. So,
Well, what is not poorly done is as she's flying towards the Lochnar, filling herself with lightning, ready to sacrifice her life.
Yeah.
The Lochnar lets out one final death cry, which
yeah,
we shall now perform for you in all its blood-curdling misery. No.
One of the most anticlimactic no's you could probably ever
But
hear
it's
from
followed by one of the greatest endings,
Yes.
where not only does the Lochnar crack and explode, he cracks and explodes in the past in the framing device as well.
anyone. Yes. He's
Somehow,
starting to
him showing her what was supposed to be his final victory not only kills him there in the future, but showing this documentary about him blowing himself up results in him blowing up. And not only does he explode in the house, he explodes so hard that it switches media. As the explosion is not animated, but is in fact model being detonated.
Yeah. So if you don't remember, because it's been quite a while now since we talked about it, they were in like a little mansion, basically. The little girl and the Lochnar. He was
Yes.
as the framing device for all these little stories, as that last one ends, he explodes and takes the entire mansion, and she runs away from it. It clearly doesn't, like, I don't understand why telling a story of him blowing up blows him up now, and B, why, if this is going to happen, why he would tell her a story about him blowing up in the first place when he said that.
What is the order in which these events
There
happen?
is some curious synchronicity going on with the Loch-Nah's mind.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we could nitpick all the nonsense of this plot all day, but we don't care.
Yeah.
There's no reason to do so because there's no delight in doing so.
Yeah.
The film, I kind of admire failures like this, but this film is, unless you're just laughing at the terrible parts, it can be one slog and you just don't care. The most care you have is Schadenfreude throughout this film.
Yeah.
And so, as the Loch-Nah explodes and the little girl finds a pterodactyl and turns into the next generation of Tarakian, even though chronologically she should be the first, and the music dramatically swells as the credits begin, you just don't care.
Yeah.
It's time to move on. Watch something else, maybe a different 80s anthology animated film.
You definitely feel worse as a person for having watched this. As you say, like...
I don't.
Well, I do. I feel like worse as a person. Like, you say, like,
No, see,
Schadenfreude.
I take power from all your losses. This is how I'm draining your life force.
Well, you must have drained me a lot today, because it's just... Like,
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
This was an awful, awful film, and no one would recommend this at all, other than causing pain to enemies or just enjoying causing pain. Do not watch this film. Do not watch heavy metal. Do not watch
heavy metal.
Do not watch
heavy metal.
Do not. Do not. There's...
Look, Matt, you do realize that I'm going to be editing this audio and removing all the do nots?
Yeah, cut in. Watch.
I don't know. You're not the
heavy
first
metal.
person to explain a dastardly plan, only for it to fail for no particular reason
Oh, no.
afterwards. Maybe you are just like the Loch-Nah, and actually you're about to explode.
Look, Matt, all because my evil reaches through worlds, and on some worlds I am revered as a god.
Unless I tell a documentary about myself exploding, in which case I will explode.
Yes.
So I'm going to now talk about myself exploding.
Yeah, Matt, you're dead. She's dead. We're all dead.
We're all dead.
We're all gonna die.
There's, like, it's... I'm just going to go out and say, like, it's the misogyny and sexism in pretty much every segment of this film.
Women are liars and cheaters and whores.
Yeah.
And if you try to let them fight, they're honestly not that good at it either.
Yeah. It's almost to the point of absurdity, which I think is why it's hard to get too angry about, or it's why we probably glossed over it, because it almost feels dumb to point it out because it's so dumb in itself. It's so absurd.
Well, this is the ultimate endpoint of those sorts of absurd poor attitudes, is that ultimately they are jokes.
Sure.
And you can and oftentimes should treat them as jokes.
Yeah, it is there though, and it's present in all the segments, and it does make the film probably
it does
worse.
mire the experience.
Yeah, we talked a lot about how like filthy and grimy and just unpleasant the movie is, and that's a big part of it, I think.
Yep.
It's fascinating to me that there could be so many. There are just so many naked women and bare breasts in this, but it's like the least arousing thing I think I've ever watched in my life, just because of how just awfully unpleasant the whole thing is. It's not nice, is the way to put it. And
So let's talk about something nice.
sure.
Robot Carnival. Now, this is from 1987 and is an OVA, which is this fun little term that was cropping up in Japan in the mid-80s, standing for Original Video Animation. This bold world of releases that aren't hindered by the schedules and demands of television stations, that creators can truly be free to make things what you want. And it's direct-to-video.
Yeah.
It is direct-to-video. It blew up, because this was a period where Japan suddenly had a gigantic influx of money, their tech industry was booming, their financial sector was booming, there were all sorts of crazy, and I mean crazy, coked up investors just dumping money into stuff because they thought it was cool. The animation industry had a tremendous influx of money at this time. And one of the results of this was a booming direct-to-video market since there had been some shows that paved the way of demonstrating that animation could be used to convey some more adult stories, this resulted in trying to corner various niches with direct-to-video releases, and there was just so much demand for talent to get things made and done that this resulted in really, really rapid hiring of people. For example, there is an animator and director called Masami Obari, who started work doing his first animated opening sequence, and if you are animating an opening sequence, that's basically directing a music video, and so that's still to this day a pretty darn high-profile job to have. Obari did his first opening sequence while he was in year 11. This is how rapidly and insane the hiring rate was. And so you get just this insane influx of talent and weird, crazy projects. 1 year later, Legend of the Galactic Heroes would be greenlit, a 110-episode science fiction space opera novel adaptation, which would use pretty much every male voice actor available in the country, since every character was intended to have its own separate casting. There's only one case of doubling up in that from memory, just insane things like this are happening. And so in 87, we get some investors pumping in money into a little project to get a bunch of teams together to each make a short story about the theme of robots. And there are interesting interpretations of that theme throughout this. And certainly it begins...
Oh boy, does it.
It begins with a sequence directed by Katsuhiro Otomo, who was the author of Akira, the comic, and the artist of Akira, the comic, as well as the director of the film, Akira. He also wrote it, I think this is probably the most interesting and pertinent one. There was a remake of Metropolis in animated form in 2001. We should do that sometime. It's an interesting film.
I haven't actually seen the original Metropolis either.
We might do that as a double feature.
Not the upcoming TV show set in Metropolis.
Set in the DC universe city.
Something different here.
The one across the river from Gotham,
yes,
for some reason.
Do not be alarmed.
Yes, so he's a freaking great animator, and we have this pretty cool sequence. I guess if heavy metal was tonight's Fantasia, then this is tonight's Allegro and Troppo, and thus the carnies of Allegro and Troppo, who were just toxic and nasty, have been replaced with literally killer carnies. Hey there, village, says the little kid finding the sign. The carnies are coming to town. Run! Everyone immediately bolts. The kid does... You think initially it's very well framed, because it looks like here is an excited kid saying the carnies are coming, and everyone locks up their houses because they don't like Romani. The classic carny hatred. And instead, no, that kid is running, because he's running for his life, as this gigantic robot tank, with the title of the film being the building itself. This gigantic tank in the shape of the words Robot Carnival, extolling happy music. It's so determined to get an audience reaction, it pipes in audience cheering, as it's great fanfare, it's fireworks, and it's dancing, and the sways of destruction it reaches across the landscape, as whether it was intentional or just something going horribly, horribly wrong. Oh god, the robots are coming, and they won't stop shooting missiles from their trumpets.
This certainly starts off a lot stronger.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah,
easily the strongest start of the night.
Yeah, and it will continue on to the next segment. But yeah, just comparing it to heavy metal straight away, it's like, wow, this looks so much better visually, and
oh man, it was so well animated.
Yeah,
visually beautiful.
It was just such a nice thing to have.
The design work is great. The frame rate is great. The flow and the squash and the stretch and the anticipation, it's animation.
Yeah, it's a good start. It's loud and it's fun. It's good.
It's loud and boisterous, and just Robot Carnival is in your face.
Yeah.
And then it really smartly doesn't follow this up with something equally insane. it slows it right back down with a very personal, very thematic heavy story called Franken's Gears. Now, this was directed and designed and mostly animated by Koji Morimoto, who was a key animator in Kiki's Delivery Service. That's a Studio Ghibli film. It's the one where the town's based in Adelaide. Yeah, local stories.
Hey.
He was an animator on things like Do You Remember Love, certain key scenes in Macross Plus. He directed the Lensman OVA, which is a very personal thing. Like a lot of the people who directed segments of this film, a lot of his career has involved animating opening sequences. That absolutely shows in this one. This is very music video. He did a lot of the 80s openings, so he did a bunch of Jody Pear stuff, a bunch of City Hunter. They're all good openings, and packed with good verbose visual meaning. And I think the first thing that I'll say about this before throwing it to you guys is, if you had 1,000 different teams assembled that were all told to make a film with the theme of robots and it's an anthology film, I think every one of those teams would have made this short. or at least a short that has the same themes as this one. Because it's just like the classic sort of thing when you're told, make a story about robots, okay? I'm going to make a story of ambition, of desire for control, of changing the world, possibly owning the world, and it being something that you can't take back once you've done.
Yeah. I have a lot of things to say about this one. It's probably one of the best ones, best segments in the movie.
It's a delight.
But first, we should probably say what happens in it before going too far.
Dr. Frankenstein activates the robot with lightning and it kills him.
Yes, that's there you go. Just to make sure people know what we're talking about before going into it. But yeah, it's like...
It's called Franken Robots.
Yeah, okay, but still for the listeners might have
Yeah,
wanted
unfortunately
to know.
there's no clever pun in the Japanese. No, it's just Franken's Gears.
Yeah.
Franken's Gears.
Yeah. But it's, I really like this one, and it's one of those things where, luckily it's so heavy-handed in its symbolism that even I could get it, and...
Oh yeah, it's not subtle, but
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, I think it's just such a fantastic way to start. I mean, I guess technically the intro started, but as the first segment...
As the first actual short film.
Yeah,
Something that's not heavy metal.
Yes, that's true. But it also just, like...
But this is heavy.
It sets
and
up...
a lot of metal.
Yeah. To me, I feel like it sets up the rest of the movie so well, in that you have the theme of creating robots as creating new life, and the way that can change the world. There's a while the robot is getting up and everything around is exploding, because this also happens in these stuff.
It's not just that's the sort of thing you happen when you're having a dramatic dismantling of a lab.
Yeah.
It's also just the way he's doing this by stretching out his arms and just like and this is something we've experienced as we're entering the age of automation, is that even when you've got good intentions, when you're so rapidly changing the socio-economic game with technological innovations, yes, that wonderful word, that terrifying word, disruption. Even when you're... certainly if you're being poor in intention, then you can create immense damage, but even when you're actively trying to help things, you're going to upheave things so much that there's going to be damage.
And unintentional consequences.
Yeah, there's a bit when that is happening, when everything's crying around. He has, like, something that looks very much like a globe.
Yep.
And it splits, and you could take that as, like, he's destroying the world, but for me it was more just, he's done something that will change it.
Yeah.
Forever.
It cannot be undone.
Yeah.
Once this box is opened.
Yeah. So I feel like there's, like, two things that I really like about this. Is there's the fact that he's done something now that will change the world forever, and that fits in very well with everything coming before, which is why it's such a great first sequence.
Yes.
For something called Robot Carnival, where all the next sequences after that will be about how robots...
Different facets of robots.
Yeah, and how it's all about how they can change the world and how a world with them might look. And the second part I think that I really liked was that symbolism of he created robots with creating life, the same way like the original Frankenstein story is about creating life. This is about it kind of connects using robots as a new life form.
Yeah.
And I think you see that a lot. We'll talk about them as they come up, but the next sequence that happen often have very lifelike robots, like robots that are
almost human.
Or pretty much human.
Yes.
They're characters in themselves. That's
Yeah,
why
they're too human, in fact.
maybe.
No, leave.
But yeah, I really like this one. This is my favorite one by far. I think you can tell from how I'm talking. Like it's that symbolism that even I can get. So probably that's why I'm excited about it. Like, I get this. I get what this means.
Yeah, there's big ideas here, and they're easy to convey. But there's also some really nice, subtle, personal touches. So, like, he's got this giant globe on his back. There's also a bunch of globe-like figures attached to it. And when he fails to activate the robot, and he falls down in his slump, breaking off the front of his globe backpack is there's one of the globes falls off and lands in his hands. And it's just this wonderful little personal moment of he feels like he's got the world on his shoulders, and when he's failed, his own world is falling apart as well. It's just this great little externalization of what he's thinking. That's just the language of film and good storytelling.
Yeah.
And not heavy metal.
Not heavy metal. You're just gonna say this out every segment.
Say the line, Louis. Say the line.
It's not heavy metal. I should probably also say I got so into the symbolism of it. It's also just very on a more basic level. It just looks very good. Like,
yeah, absolutely. It was the most like striking thing coming out of what we'd previously. It just is so well animated and just visually very, very beautiful.
Even if you didn't get any of that symbolism, that's possible. You know, like that you might not have. Like if you were consuming it passively, or whatever, you would still get that sense of something.
Something big is happening.
Yeah, because everything's falling apart, and just the way it's set up and the music. This is really good. This is really good. I don't know if it feels really good because it came after such horrible shit, but this was alright. And it's
a few weeks ago, I showed this to a friend for the first time.
Sure.
And like this impacted him when he saw it as well. It's just this is good.
Yeah.
Sometimes
simple can be good.
Yep, it's simple and effective and just good cinematic storytelling.
Yeah.
The next sequence is Deprived, directed and animated, and character designs by Hidetoshi Omori, who's mostly a freelance animator. He pops up in all sorts of places, like he pops up in modern Shaft shows, which are extremely art house. He did a lot of the 90s Gundam series. He pops up in all sorts of places. He's just this solid workhorse key animator. But before we talk about Deprive itself, I want to say something else about original video animation. So, a lot of young talent was hired to just get popped into these projects, which are just popping up all over the place. Just these weird money surpluses. What do we do? Let's throw some money at some direct-to-video project. A lot of the times that what this resulted in was people who were just entering the industry and were like 17 to 20 years old were suddenly finding themselves as directors of direct-to-video projects with just this unrestrained creative freedom. The problem is, when you're 17 to 20 years old, there's not a lot of you're still learning the art of storytelling, and you're still learning stories to tell. And so the sorts of things that you'll do is basically things that you saw from your childhood that you think, I know what would make this more awesomer. Some bigger guns, or some nice tits. And this is the sort of culture, this is the circumstances which result in things like Madball 34, MD Geist, Genocyber. Like, all these classic, insane, hyper-violent direct-to-video productions of the 80s that so heavily influenced the Western understanding of anime in that time period when Manga Entertainment started buying these up, shipping them out with those amazing English dubs. God damn it, where the hell is Jack fucking chicken shit fucking shit. And it stems from just people who are... It's basically the people who, in the last 15 years, would have been writing these dumb, weird fanfics. It's the E.L. Jameses of the world being thrust into this director role, frankly, well before they should be.
Yeah.
So all this is to say is that really what Deprive is as a sequence is someone who's been thrust into this role at a young age and just, oh, make something with robots. And he goes, well, man, I really liked Cashern. I'm just gonna do Cashern, but with my art.
Yeah.
So we got Cashern. Oh no, robots are attacking. Oh no, this girl has been kidnapped. The robot man will save the girl. Yay! Cool music plays.
The end. Roll credits.
As if you've never looked up these these bad sci-fi 80s OVAs, which some of them are a delight if you're like real dumb exploitative schlock, like fun dumb, not heavy metal dumb. Things like MD Geist, Madball 34. Some of the more boring ones include things like Detonator Orgun or Dungayo. On the better end, you get Bubblegum Crisis. And yeah, if you don't feel like spending time watching any of those, watch this sequence of Robot Carnival, and it's the same thing.
It was a drastic change of tone.
Oh yeah.
And I think you see that from the intro to the first segment to now this, and then you'll see in the next segment as well. Just like fast to slow, fast to slow. I kind of zoned out, I think, a little bit after this one. It wasn't anywhere near as interesting as the previous one. I guess the only thing that really clicked with me was the way that the robot in question was almost indistinguishable from a human character.
Yep.
It's just...
Well, he's got a human skin,
Yeah.
and then there's a robot core inside.
Yeah, which I think connected with the previous one of, robots as life. And that was the only thing I kind of found interesting about it. Other than that, it was just lots of shooting, which is fine. I mean...
It's fine, but, you could be watching an actual action OVA.
Yeah.
Or Cashin. Cashin is just a really good 70s show. It's one of the best ones of that decade as far as just the procedural action TV shows. King Boss is one fantastic villain, and Cashin's a cool dude. He saves the children, has a robot dog friend. Beats up robots.
Yeah, just because I don't have much to say about this one, I don't want to make it sound like I disliked it at all.
It's there. It's there. It's cool.
Yeah.
There's nothing to it.
Yeah, it's just a fun sequence.
Was this the tentacle one? Like
Tentacle one.
Yeah, he gets kidnapped and fights some things with tentacles.
Some things with tentacles.
There's the guy who looks like a gamelan. It's Dessler in a punk outfit as the bad guy.
Yeah.
He shoots an eye laser.
That's right. Yeah, eye laser.
And then not Cashin punches him. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he saves the girl.
The girl who looks like she's just from August, I guess.
Oh, I think this one also started the, or maybe the first one did probably more, but I think I noticed in this one, this entire movie really likes eyes. Does anyone else notice that?
Yeah.
It really likes, and it's weird because they're all different directors, I'm guessing, and different writers, but all of them, every single one seemed to have close-up of eyes. I remember seeing the little girl that he was trying to protect that eye. It really looked
Eyes
close.
are the window to the soul.
Yeah.
And you can say this is a Japan thing. No, this is a fundamentals of animation thing.
Okay.
This is why characters like Mickey Mouse and Felix the Cat have such large eyes, is because they are a facet that when you're exaggerating attributes, they are such an important one for conveying emotion. Later this year, I'll be subjecting you to an animated movie trilogy.
Okay.
It's going to be one hell of a ride, but the use of eyes to convey so many emotions in that film is frankly brilliant.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, sorry. There was so little to say about this one. I had to come up with something.
No,
that's
it's cool.
Apparently,
there's
in every anime.
There's not much to it.
Yeah.
This is when you let some kids have the reins. Sometimes they'll make a thing for kids.
Sure.
Presents is the next sequence, directed by Yasumu Umetsu, who worked on the 90s adaptations of Cashin and Gatchaman. He was the head of animation for Megazone 23 Part 2. Most interestingly, he directed some films called Kite and Mezzoforte. Now, if you were... our live audience is laughing because they know this. These are a pair of films from the early 2000s, which are contemporary action films with pornographic sequences for no reason partway through. These were very common mainstays of anime forums in the early 2000s that people go, yo man, check out Kite, look at the sex. There's a sex scene with actual penetrative sex, man. Yeah, man, check that out. And it's really interesting because the politics of this sequence are fascinatingly great, and that this guy made some porn later in his career is interesting and makes me feel like he's sympathetic towards the main character when there is nothing likable or redeemable about this protagonist. He is a bad bloke. But before we get to that guy, there's an opening gag which almost could have been a short film entry in and of itself, where you just see that it's this almost Victorian in the way people are dressing and walking around. And then a bunch of kids run up and knock an old man who's actually a robot's head off and start playing around with the head. That's a fun little skit.
Yeah. Which is so weird compared to everything else in this.
Yeah.
In this sequence in particular.
Yeah, I'm not even actually quite sure why that's even there, to be totally honest.
It feels like we've got this cool idea, and since we're here, we might as well put it in. And the way it's paced, like, it feels like it's not tied. It's not really connected. There's a callback to it in the main body of the text. But it feels like, hey, we'll just try to put this as separately as we can, as just, here's our other goofy idea, as another short film entry. Because there's just this hard fade to black. And after that is when the title for this sequence appears. Whereas the title was at the very start for every other short in this film.
That's true. Yeah. There's actually a few things I was unsure about this one. I'm hoping that when you go through this, like, to give them this is an idea what happens.
Presence is one.
I also need some help with.
Unfortunately, I think for me, this is where I found myself checking out a little bit of pretty much the rest of Robot Carnival.
Sure.
It is slow. I prefer to use the word deliberate to describe the pacing of this. Because this is one which has grown on me a lot over many years. I first saw Robot Carnival was about 13, 14.
Okay.
And I hated this sequence the first time I saw it. And didn't like it much the next time I saw it either. But it's one where there's a lot of visual information going on here. And it's very deliberately paced to tell a story and a character. I kind of feel the director is sympathizing with him. But you shouldn't. So, let's get into our main character here, who, if you've ever been on Twitter, and you've ever encountered a guy who works in tech, who very openly states that he is a feminist, and he's really a strong supporter of women's rights, but any time you ask him, why haven't you hired any women, he will say, oh, well, they just weren't good enough to hire. This is that guy. The guy who thinks he cares about women, but has zero respect for them. He gleefully talks about how strong and powerful his wife is because she has a full-time job. But he uses this as an excuse so he doesn't have to work, so he can fiddle around playing with his toys without worrying. Even when flying alarm clocks remind him to get back to work, he just gleefully ignores them. Something about the framing is, you never see his wife's face until he is dead. I'm not sure if did you pick this up as you watched it? Yeah. You see her mouth one time. The rest of the time her face is hidden in shadows. You only see people who are younger and less power than him when it comes to women. You only see his daughter's face. When his daughter is grown up, you only see his granddaughter's face, and his daughter's is just as shrouded as his wife's was. This guy does not actually respect women. And so, what does he do with his spare time? He builds a robot that is his ideal, perfect, literally objectified woman.
Yeah, that connects with, again, with the first one, creating life, again, with...
Yep, he was creating life, and this is all about creating an artificial, utterly controlled life. This one's... He doesn't want to create life. He wants to create a thing to have, a toy to play with. He talks about how he didn't really have a mother, and so he rushed into a marriage so he could experience motherhood from seeing his wife have a kid. And he clearly cared about the kid when it's a kid, but he's not interested in women having agency or actually doing things. And as soon as his robot inadvertently does have life and starts to develop agency in its own desires and wants, even when these wants include a romantic connection with him, he is so horrified by a woman thinking on her own like this that he has to destroy it.
So that's why I destroyed it? I was very confused at this point. I thought I missed something.
Because he hates women.
Okay.
And so as soon as it starts calling him out in his bullshit, he's going, I can't have that anymore. And the way, like, the Kuleshov effect, the montage editing going on as he destroys it,
Oh yeah,
it's
of the,
that's
wind-up toy.
Yeah, it's
and the other one
wind-up toy, and then Red Arrow from Ghosts and Goblins swoops down. I mean, that attack hits everyone. You can't dodge that. It's unblockable in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 for a reason, mate. Yeah, swoops down, knocks over the toy. That's brilliant editing. That's something that you would do in university lectures.
Yeah,
You could probably view it as pretty pretentious, but
Sorry, you're gonna have to explain to me why it's
So-
so good.
it's just some.
it's just effective.
What does it mean? I didn't get it at all.
It's further cementing that his perception of this being an object and a toy for himself,
Okay.
while also not having to go through the sequence of animating a man killing a woman.
So he's the bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the bird. He's the little demon. He's the demon. He's the evil thing killing the innocent thing.
Okay. I guess it lost me before I got to that bit.
Yeah. This is one where, like, when you know where it's gone, and you've seen this one a few times, it's, it's... He hates women.
Because I was so
And
certain
he
that
treats
I
them
missed
horribly.
something. I thought maybe she'd attacked him or something. Like, it was very confusing. The bit when she runs into when she hits the mirror, and he's suddenly very upset. And
The mirror is him smashing her into the mirror.
he smashed her.
Yeah, he smashed her into the mirror. Like,
Okay.
if you look at the shot that he's got the ending, the follow through of a slap sequence.
Yeah.
He's just backhanded her into the mirror because she caught him out.
Doesn't she like run up behind him and grab him or something?
Yeah, she tried to hug him,
Yeah,
and
then
so he turned around and backhanded
and
her.
he hit her. Okay.
So that's what.
See
happened.
that confused me. The following part of him picking up the wrench.
Yeah, the wrench
And
is then very
and then
clear.
the toy knocking the other toy over. That was pretty clear to me. It was leading up to that didn't make much sense to me.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah, then he grows older, and that's like the next sequence of him growing old. It's kind of neat that the image that's associated there as a shark is the image that it keeps going to there, just this thing that constantly keeps moving and feeding.
Yeah.
And yeah, then like the next bit where he's somewhat older, it's going back. He's haunted by what he's done, but at the same time, he still hasn't changed or learned anything from the experience because he's just now objectifying his granddaughter rather than his daughter, because now his daughter is just another shadowy face that he ignores.
Yeah.
And then he goes back, has these pangs of guilt, and goes, maybe I should have done that. Did I do it? And then, yeah, I did do it. And as he's old, he feels some degree of regret and keeps trying to make... Obviously, he's too old to make something that effective again, so he's making a much more controllable facsimile that he keeps with him, and that little angel toy. And it's only as he's dead that his wife actually is shown outside of his perception. You go, hey, she was a person the whole time. It's fitting that like her final comments and the final lines in this sequence is, you can't be a boy forever.
Yeah.
So fuck this guy. Bad bloke, don't be this guy.
Yeah, that's probably better than I get credit for, I guess. But
Yeah, it's one that took a number of views and understandings of social concepts to go, yeah, I see what this is going for, and I can see how a director I can see how people would think that he's a good guy through all this.
well, not now that I know that now that it's more clear.
If someone hates women, I can see how they'd think this guy's cool.
Okay, yeah, because now that I know that because I was so confused at why he attacked her in the first place, is why I didn't quite get anything else that followed, really.
Yeah.
So
It's one where the first time you're going through and you're hearing these comments, and it's like, yeah, I guess he's kind of okay. It's only when you've got the whole picture that you can then go back and go, nah, he's shit.
Okay.
Bad bloke.
Alright.
I think that's about it for presents for today. Starlight Angel, directed by Hiroyuki Kitazumi, key animator for Studio Sunrise throughout pretty much all the 80s. That's everything. I think Dunbine was one of the things he started on. He worked on Elgime. A lot of character design work. He worked on Zeta Gundam through Char's Counterattack. So all the characters in this really, really have that mid-80s Sunrise aesthetic. Down to one guy looking like Elchi and one guy very clearly being Char Aznavour. I think Matt was remarking as we watched it that it felt like a commercial.
Yes.
It's totally a commercial for Disneyland.
Yeah, for a robo version of Disneyland.
Yeah, there's it's cute, the attention to details it has, having been to Disneyland. Of the layout of the park, the rides, it has the Tomorrowland spinning rocket ships, it has Space Mountain, and the way that they do those shots, you can clearly see, yeah, this is Space Mountain. Just 80s sci-fi version. There's a bunch of robot expos. There's the facsimile of Neuschwanstein in the middle. There's the electric light parade, which is a spectacular thing. That's a good event. There's a very nice little touch in one of the crowd shots of the electric light parade. There's one guy in the crowd who might be an employee off of shift because he's wearing a Raiders of the Lost Ark ride jumper. I went, hey, I remember those jackets. You can buy them at the store. Cool. Nice touches. I think I'll bring up a story here about my time in Disneyland.
Sure.
Because I was young. It was a couple of weeks after September 11th, which was the best time in the history of the park to go, because everyone was so terrified of an attack striking Disneyland that no one went. When you go to Disneyland, you buy a 3-day pass.
Okay.
This pass and these 3 days there, you might go on each ride once, because the lines are so goddamn long. I went on Space Mountain at least 10 times in this thing. Some of them, the waiting time was 2 minutes. I would get off the ride, walk back through the queue, and the queues were so empty that they'd actually roped off some of the line ride, just so you could get through it faster. When it came to the parades, I was short. I didn't really grow until I was about 15. I was a short kid. But there was this spinning rocket ride in Tomorrowland. It's in this short. You can adjust the height of the rockets up and down. People use it to go wee up and down while they're spinning. I just went, hey, I can keep this up. And there's no line at all. 0 line. As soon as the ride finishes, I just walk in and go back on it again. So I will watch this is right next to the main street. So I use this to watch the entire parade, just spinning around at the maximum height, going, hey, cool, I can watch all the parades here.
That's like every little boy and girl's kind of fantasy.
I was Zacchaeus on the spinning rockets.
It sounds like a Hollywood movie version of events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like something from a Pay It Forward.
Yeah.
Just one of those whimsical family kid movies with the wise kid, the smart cracking kid.
Yeah.
We'll be watching one of those movies next week.
They snuck into the theme park at night or something because they're friends with one of the employees there and they get to go on all the rides.
Yeah. Alternatively, a scary story of an unsettling story of the world would be better if there was less people in it because we could enjoy things more.
We can enjoy our automated theme parks more.
We can enjoy
robots.
Exactly.
So anyway,
Speaking of robots.
back to Starlight Angel. It is a very silly, cheesy 80s shoujo style romance sequence. Some girls are at Disneyland because one of the girls has broken up with a boyfriend. And they make some jokes about hitting on a robot who's trying to get people to go to one of the rides that no one wants to go on.
Yeah.
Then she sees her ex-boyfriend, she's reminded of how much he sucks, and she's annoyed and sad. So she goes to the virtual reality display. She also drops a locket during this time, which the robot she was teasing earlier finds and chases her around. Yeah. Then finds her in the VR, and the VR gets dangerous. There's bad robots in the VR, but then the robot flies in and saves her, but his head is knocked off and it turns out he was a dude in a costume. The whole time she's rejecting men because they suck, but now she goes, men are alright, this guy was nice to me. What a nice guy. My favourite little visual touch is there's an earlier moment where his head gets knocked off, and it would reveal that he's a dude inside. But the frame is cut so that you can't see the top of his body when this happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's another one of those things where it goes from slow to fast again. They paced out these segments pretty well. This last one was very slow and prodding or deliberate, however you want to put it. And this one was right back to very fast, and the music kind of picked up and a lot of flying around in the VR.
Yes, we've had this heavy one about hating women. Now here's this fluffy little romance story.
Yeah.
And the big spiky robot that tried to eat.
Yeah, it shot mouth lasers.
Yes.
And then every now and then a weird bit of industrial light and magic.
Yeah, that
Foley
was
kicked
really
in.
strange.
Random Star Wars sounds.
Including a lightsaber sound, which is really rare, because usually you use the Sunrise Beam Saber sounds if you're gonna not Star Wars. From memory, Mad Bull 34 has an episode where there's a lightsaber that uses the lightsaber sounds as well. Why do I keep going back to Mad Bull? Probably because it's the best.
Mad Bull.
Yeah.
Hey, Daizabora.
It's annoying that these ones that aren't that bad, like it, even though I probably like this one.
They're fun, but they don't mean much.
Yeah, like it's difficult to talk about these ones because it makes it sound as if we didn't like them. But it's not that I didn't like it. It's just that there's not much really to say.
It's not a
nice
standout
enough.
artistic piece, but
Yeah.
like there's value, especially in a project which is just random indie creators. Just this is a thing we felt like making because we thought it would be fun. There's merit to that.
Yeah, no, it's mostly fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
The music makes it fun.
The music
it's-
is really good. Actually.
It's like Fantasy Star 1 music.
Yeah, I think the way I put it was like it felt like the kind of music you get in like a mini game, like a
Yeah.
Japanese game, a video game that has like a mini game in it. This would be the
Yeah,
music
it's more
for it.
specifically like dating sim type things. Like this would feel at home in Tokimeki Memorial.
Yeah, a bunch of the music for this stuff, some of these reminded me of visual novels.
Music was a lot better in this than it was in heavy metal. We talked about the themes being better, the visuals being better. The music is better.
Well, in that case, it's just really poor song choices for the visuals, whereas this is music written for the visuals.
Yeah, definitely.
Then we have Cloud by Manabu Ohashi. Do you want to know what my next note is for Cloud?
Boring.
Fuck Cloud.
Yeah. Nothing happens. And then what's the next segment?
So there is a robot child, and I guess he's immortal because the history of humanity happens, and he just ignores it all, slinking in the bottom left corner of the frame.
Yeah, it shows it like on like a screen.
Yeah, it's just
Humanity on-
well, you know, it's bordered.
Yeah.
It's bordered, so you know it's art,
Yes.
and he's ignoring the world, and there's cherubs, and there's the mortality of man, and there's wars, and there's triumph, and there's nuclear bombs. You get it? It's art because the Japanese media has issues with nuclear stuff. Giant Robo is nuclear. This is a controversial thing. And then I guess he becomes a real boy at the end because he turns around and embraces the life that's been around him all this time. This is the most second-year film student thing ever.
It's incredibly boring. I think that's the only really way to put it. It's not. It's like very obvious words like boring, pretentious.
Heavy-handed.
You won't want to watch this. You won't remember it very well. And if you know anyone that likes it, don't be friends with them. Just
Smack him. Backhand them into a mirror.
yes. If you backhand them into a mirror and beat them up with a wrench, you were better than that man because he beat up an innocent robot. You were beating up.
You're beating up Cloud apologists.
Yes. You'd be a hero in that story rather than the villain.
Strange Tales of Meiji Machine Culture. This was directed by Hiroyuki Kitagabo, who was another guy who worked on Akira. I believe the third one of this film. He directed Golden Boy. I think you guys might not have been... Oh, no. So the studio audience is popping for Golden Boy. Golden Boy is an early...
aware of Golden
Yeah, Golden
Boy.
Boy is an early 2000s American Pie style horny teen comedy.
I am only aware of Golden Boy because of AMV Hell.
Yeah, there's some good cuts. There are some good cuts in AMV Hells 1 and 2. No, Golden Boy is a really funny dub. Like, just a genuinely great dub that totally gets and nails the humor. If you want good horny teen humor, it is a classic. He also debuted directing an episode of Cream Lemon. Alright, yeah. Yeah, that's a porn from the 80s.
A porn called Lemon. That's pretty funny.
Cream Lemon.
Cream Lemon.
Yeah. Well, but it's the lemon part.
On the other hand,
Because it's tart.
did the characters look familiar to either of you? Like,
Which
just
one was this?
this is the
mech
Meiji
one.
era robot. Meiji era Combat La V one.
This was the Mac one.
There's the robots in Japan.
Yeah,
The steampunk robots.
Yeah, the steampunk robots with the Westerner.
Yeah, the evil American.
Something about...
He speaks American, not English, so you can't translate him. The textbook doesn't cover American. Because the character designer was Yoshiyuki Sadamoto. Mr. Gainax.
Gainax, okay.
So, Gunbuster... Well, not... He was the animator, the character animator for Gunbuster, but not the character designer. Like Nadia, Evangelion, a bunch of Fully Cooley, like... Most of the things that have that certain Gainax-y look, Royal Space Force.
Yeah.
Now, they all have that sort of look to the way characters look and feel. That's all Yoshiyuki Sadamoto.
Right.
This was one of his earlier contributions. He's great.
Yeah, this was a fun little segment.
Yeah, this is fun.
This was the closest thing to...
Again, slow down, speed up, slow down, speed up.
Yeah. It went from... And this was actually really needed this time, because
Cloud sucks.
Cloud was really bad. So, even though there's not much really to talk about thematically or anything with this one, it's actually quite fun.
It's a really fun genre piece.
Yeah.
Because it's riffing on specifically combining super robots. I said Combat La Vie once or twice. The characters, I think, are closer to Volts 5, which was the next show by that director. Basically, combining robot shows are, you have a bunch of people who fly little things and they combine to make the big robot. So, you do stories about teamwork and the body's made up of different parts of their own function and that thing. Having the genius kid with the swirly glasses, very much a visual staple of these shows in the 70s in particular. The stoic guy, the big guy, the chick, the glorious Japanese hero main guy. And it's great because it's playing to those tropes, but it also undercuts them because they aren't in some super science thing. They're in a coal-powered hulking monster, and in the process of doing anything at all, it is inherently destroying the city around itself. And it calls them out on this.
Yeah. I think my favorite little touch, little detail, was when they both sides ran out of power, but the coal guys had to start literally cannibalizing their own robots.
Yeah. It's, let's get some wood. Let's just start pulling off our armor. It's all wood anyway. Except for the bits which are tiles. Slate tiling, because it's a Japanese house as a robot.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Westerner, the American, had to get on a bike to generate power.
His batteries had run low.
Dr. Frank's batteries ran out, so he's on a penny farthing to power his robot, because this is 1910.
This is just genuine, just interesting, not in that thematic way like we were talking in other stuff, but this is exciting in a nerdy kind of way.
Yeah, it's great nerd humor here. Here's this dumb genre of children's entertainment. Let's look at the practicalities of trying to tell this same story if it's the 1910s.
Yeah.
Say you smash up a city. Yeah. You have to physically climb to the top of your robot to light the cannons on fire.
Yeah. There's just a real fun in steampunk and in mechs like these, which I tend to call these ones more like land battleships more than I love this.
Well, they don't have the mobility.
Yeah, I love this.
It's the friggin' land ship from Zabungle, but it's made out of wood.
Because I often tell people that I'm not really into mech battles too much, but when I say that, I generally mean the ones that are almost indistinct. They're basically just giant humans. Yeah. They're just running
It is often the point that
swords.
it's the human figure being recontextualized as an entity purely for war, which is a fun theme to play around with.
Sure, but just not for me personally for the most part. But I love these kind of mechs. I love the idea of slow, laborious mechs. Or
it's
even
closer
just
to a mech.
Essentially a walking battleship.
Yeah.
Where you have a full crew that has to do anything at all.
Yeah. It didn't have one of the parts that I really like is also the maneuvering part. I love the idea of land battleships or mechs trying to get in good positions.
Slowly trying to walk. Well, it's the journey of do they have enough resources to make the trip to each other, because they're also split by a river in the middle.
Yeah. I'm not going to get too into I'm not going to get on my case for that kind of stuff, because this is a comedy more than anything else. This isn't a technical war scenario or anything like that. So
actually, the Getter sandals on the robot provide a technical advantage.
But it is really fun.
And of course, the ending is great, because not only does it call them out on their hubris and how they're essentially self-proclaimed heroes but not really heroes. This is a sentiment very much reflected in a 1996 anime about robots called The Brave of Gold Goldran, which featured the episode directorial debut of XL Saga's director. It's a very fun show that's actively hating shows made to sell toys for children, to the point where a bunch of episodes have snuck into the opening a bunch of handwritten notes saying this is a shitty show made to sell toys to children. The show has some of the most amazing, absurdist comedy moments of the 90s, including an episode where they go to a racist character of Japan as written by Japanese people, and it includes a princess fleeing her family, hot wiring a police car, making a kid drive it for her while she pulls out a shotgun and opens fire on the cops.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, there's a bunch of episodes of that show which end with the kids making an absolute mess of the place in the world they've visited. Just smashing up everything, then walking away going, "Yep, what great heroes we are." So you hear a bunch of townspeople saying, "Get back here, you bloody kids! Fix up your mess." Yep, everything's alright. That's pretty much how this ends. Complete with our hero declaring, "Look, I can see the rising sun," and going to the traditional rising sun flag, as the girl says, "It's setting. You dumb shit."
And it was literally like a sun in like the Japanese.
Yeah, it was the flag,
Yeah.
the Imperial's flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun little segment.
Yeah, it was the most one that felt like just an episode out of a TV show rather than a short in of itself.
I mean, that's what it's supposed to do. It's a genre parody.
Yeah, it was a very fun thing to watch, especially after
Cloud.
Yes.
And so we get to Chicken Man and Redneck by Takashi Nakamura, who was yet again someone who worked on Akira, a lot of animation and things like Nausicaa, and he directed a film in about 2003 called A Tree of Palm, which is in some ways an adaptation of Pinocchio. It's an interesting, ambitious film. It kind of trips over its own feet, but it's an admirable failure at times. And at other points, it's genuinely interesting. This guy has been around for a million years. And that really shows, and even here, this is, I guess, the middle of his career. He knows how to put scenes together. And so you just get this great, constantly moving, flowing tribute/parody of The Night at Bald Mountain from Fantasia, complete with harpy tits, but they're robot harpy tits.
I didn't know what was going on at that point in the segment.
That point, like, a bunch of this is just we're riffing on visuals from Night at Bald Mountain.
Okay.
And then a bunch of it's just tapping into, I think the title is important to understanding the main character, because he's a country bumpkin. So it's not just that he's some drunken layabout running around town and sleeping in alleys. This is a guy who's clearly got who's moved to the big city, but clearly doesn't like it, and so a lot of these have been exploring things about identity or value and embracing technology, or technology wanting to embrace humanity. This one's just that fear that technology and automation will replace you, I think, is the best way to describe this. And it's just a guy on a moped just running the hell away from all these goddamn robots. And at the same time, there is this sense towards the end, as much like the light of faith that defeats Chernobog and the Ave Maria chant, there is a blinding light that quells the robots in the sequence here, and it is that of a nuclear bomb. And this is a good use of nuclear weaponry, is discussing how even if we reach a point where robots can start to supplant humanity, humanity still just has it has power over automation still. Even if it comes down to hard power, which is the absolute worst option, it's something to think about as we move towards the future.
Yeah, that you talking about it there makes it sound much more, I think, serious than it was. This was mostly a very...
It's fun. It's a goofy parody of Night at Bald Mountain, the robots.
It's mostly just lots of fun visuals as
There's
the guy tries to bicycle his way through.
Wonderfully cartoony use of that moped. A sequence with, he actually, kick starts it with his feet like he's on the Flintstones at various points.
Yeah.
There's bits where he's bouncing off tiny thin pieces of wood that a moped has no value in sitting on. Like, that board would break.
Yeah.
But it's a cartoon, and so he can just whoosh along with it and spring off things, get picked up holding his moped while a crane picks him up by the scruff of his shirt.
Yeah, it was... I was struggling a little bit of like what it was about at times, but visually, I think it was really good and just fun to watch him try and get away from these very strangely designed robots.
Yeah, there's also a bit of an old folklore thing that developed in Japan through the 60s through 80s. Yeah, there's a bit of this old wives' tale that if you leave all your electronics close to each other too much or throw them in the trash together, that they'll wind up getting smashed together and make a different machine entirely. And so since it's playing off of the way that Chernobog would, or the devil would, grab the demons and smash them together and change them and show his power that way, there's a lot of playing around with that where he smashes his hands into the robots and they just become this horrible, wonky, useless hybrid that can't do anything.
Yeah.
I unfortunately passed out for about a few minutes, so I don't remember this sequence at all.
So this is typical with your experiences with Akira, where you fall asleep every time.
Yes. I haven't seen that movie the whole way through.
I guess it's a good way to end. Well, it's kind of a good way to end. Like a kind of a robot carnival kind of thing where it's just it's like
You've seen the show,
yeah.
and now they've taken over.
Yeah, like this is like the end point of the robots are now taking over. Now we're just running away from them. It's evolved, and like we've had these ones before. We've had like Fun Mech Battle. We've had a guy trying to create a robot. We've had like pretentious robots who are immortal.
With robots.
Falling in love. Now
We've got robots as objectification.
yeah. Now these are just robots that have just gone completely out of control, and this is the fear, I guess.
This fear that this is this unknowable thing that will replace us.
Yeah, it probably could have been done a little bit better. I feel like in some ways
It's more interested in spots
yeah.
than it is a specific narrative.
Like it's more difficult. As simple as this sounds, it was more difficult to work out this theme than it probably should have been because of just how, like, it just kind of just jumped in with both feet, and I what the fuck is that thing standing over the city? Really? Like I couldn't tell. Like
It's Chernobog.
I don't know who's Chernobog.
That's the official name of the demon in Night at Bald Mountain.
Well, I don't know what Night of Bald Mountain really is. I mean, is that...
That's from Fantasia.
It's from Fantasia.
It's the
okay.
Fantasia one with the demon and the harpy
last
tits.
one.
It's that, but they're
Where it
robots
with
now.
Okay. Yeah, it's just difficult to work out how much setup these stories actually need, especially because like often we talk about them like they're like thematically or just how cool they are visually. Like I don't know how much like
That's
actual...
that's the double-edged blade of an anthology.
Yeah.
Especially completely independent stories. So
Yeah.
if we compare this to an anthology film that we quite enjoyed, like Trick or Treat,
Yeah.
where it's all in this small enclosed area, it's just vignettes around town that can all be interconnected. Whereas when you're just doing completely isolated stories bound by a theme or by a love of music.
The Trick or Treat, they like at the start of every individual segment, they still did enough to like tell you what's going on, who are the people involved in this segment. Like he was able to tell a story, and I feel like sometimes with these segments, like you guys knew what was going on because it was like, oh, it's Bald Mountain, but not everyone's gonna know that. You
Yeah,
know, like even just a little bit of setup, you know, like just to. I guess that's the difference. Like, is it a story or is it a music video? Because a lot of music videos don't tell you what's going on. That's not the point
This
of a
one
music
was
video.
absolutely a music video.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's what I struggled with, and that's like, yeah, that's just the thought that's in my mind. Just like how much setup is really needed, and is it? Can you have an anthology that is both stories and music videos? Do you just have to decide? Can you just say, okay, this one's a music video, so we don't have to tell you what is going on, and the next one is a story, so we will? Like it, I don't know. It can be difficult to work out what I'm looking at because it's a different thing. Like watching a story.
Yeah, how you interpret a prose versus a music video. Like your brain will,
Yeah.
and when your brain has prepared itself to know that it's got to be in that vocabulary,
Yeah.
and that's part of the strength of a film like Interstellar 5555, where that is just an hour-long music video.
Sure. Yeah.
And so you're able to apply that mentality and then appreciate all the prose that's going on inside there.
It's why you usually tell someone the genre of a story before you watch the story. Usually. Like,
Or you frame things early on in such a way that you can establish what sort of genre it's going to be. If it's a comedy, you'll start off with something a bit quirky.
Yeah.
If it's a tragedy, then oftentimes, I mean, the core part of structuring a tragedy is you establish that failure is inevitable at the start.
Yeah.
And then trick the audience into thinking it's not.
Yeah. And like, what's one of the most common criticisms of a movie or a TV show or any kind of fiction one of the most common ones is well, it switched to genres poorly, or it wasn't able to establish a proper tone for the story it was trying to tell. And I feel like an anthology seems to have the problem of...
Well, it's compounded because you got to be that much more... You got to have that much more brevity.
Yeah.
And you've got so much less time to work with in order to achieve the same effect.
And it's why I think I respect Troppo a fair amount, because it felt like it managed to feel cohesive.
Yeah.
For the most part. It had its problems, it wasn't perfect, but like the start to finish, and you look at it from the whole, you could say, okay, I see what El Troppo was about. Even though it's all these different stories, you can tell what the overall theme was.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't do that with heavy metal. And or really Fantasia, really. Not that well, anyway. It's just like, Fantasia in particular actually has this loads, like, it's just...
Well, Fantasia you can understand because no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I like to go along the suite, where we're seeing the evolution of anthologies and people trying stuff, and a lot of it failing.
Sure.
And the few times it really succeeds in the stuff we watched tonight, like, those are really brightly shining spots.
Yeah.
When you get that Franken's gear.
Yeah.
Or that Meiji period.
So, like, going back to, like, this one, what was it called again?
This sequence was Chicken Man and Redneck.
Chicken Man and Redneck. Jesus Christ.
Yes.
I should have probably paid attention to that. That would have helped me a lot more.
Oh, that does remind me of a quip about why have I forgotten the name? Presents.
Yeah.
Presents. The script, I believe, is that used in the original Streamline release. There is a line towards the end where the protagonist says, "Sorry, Vandroid, I could not be your daddy longlegs," which is a very weird regional translation of what is this. He says Oji-san, and is essentially he's saying sugar daddy.
Okay.
Just thought I would bring that up while I'm here. That
Which
is a
must have
weird
confused-
legacy line.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people go, "What the hell is that?"
Well, even sugar daddy is confusing unless you understand what it's about. Because, like, if you were
Well,
going
that's
thinking that
like-
he's a good guy, you'd be like, that's a weird thing to say. Like, now that
Yeah.
you set up that he's not such a great guy,
Well,
it makes
don't
sense.
you want a
but-
daddy long legs?
Daddy Longlegs, what it is with you?
Did the daddy long legs combo?
Oh, you know what? We call a horse a horse. Have I ever shown you that video? It's from a German YouTuber vlog from about 7 years ago, where he's discovered the word daddy longlegs as he's learning English and is utterly perplexed by why you would name this tiny thing. Oh, is a Q-tip with some hairs maybe as leggies? And of course, then you know what daddy longlegs are the natural predators of, and you're even that much more amazed.
Yeah.
Do you know what they eat?
Yeah, the spiders, right?
Yeah, redbacks.
Yeah, redbacks,
Yeah.
But yeah, like, with redneck and chicken...
Chicken Man and Redneck.
Chicken Man and Redneck. I feel like even just the basic setup of him, maybe I zoned out, maybe this is the next sound like an idiot, but like, I feel like having him come from, like, it would take like 10-15 seconds. Like, he comes from the country. He's already in the city.
There are ways you can do that through visuals rather than the title.
Yeah. It's like, to set this, like, for the people who haven't seen this yet, like, it literally just starts with a giant thing.
Yep.
Over a city doing shit, like just making robots.
Yep.
Like, I don't think it's a very good way to start. Like,
It's not. And even Night at Bald Mountain builds to the reveal of the devil.
Yeah.
Where you just get the thumping dun 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 boom boom as it just shows the town, climbs up the mountain, you see the shadowy figure. Yeah. And then as the first big music beats happen, he unfurls, stretches one arm, then the other. Very pro wrestling, accentuate each motion. You know what this is.
Yeah. And what's going on?
And it's the devil.
Like, surely when they made this, they couldn't have been making it expecting the average person that was going to watch this to know
This is
immediately that it's bold mounted?
I think it's a direct-to-video release for a niche market. Like, direct-to-video releases are very much, we're going to charge you like $60 because you're a weirdo nerd buying this. So I think that was the assumption.
Well, regardless, it's bad practice. It's the thing where, like,
Intertextuality taken too far.
yeah, it should have been done better. They should have had a little bit of a setup to it to get you into it. That way you're not confused. It's amazing how much a little bit of confusion at any point, but particularly
Can
at the
just
start,
compound in on itself.
yeah, and like if you get off on the wrong foot, like what happened to me with Presents, where I couldn't
Yeah.
tell what was going on for that one instant,
And it just threw you off.
It threw me off. Like I didn't get that symbolism with the eagle hitting thing because I had no idea what the fuck was going on, like in the practicality of that scene. So I was no way I was gonna the symbolism if I didn't know what was actually going on. And with this, I feel like I might have enjoyed it more if I could have gotten a bit more context to what was going on. And it would have taken 5 to 10 seconds, I think. So that is, as I say, it's not the word. It wasn't a bad segment, but it probably could have been a bit better with
Yep.
a bit more care. Yeah.
It is a very visually cool segment that could have done more to just tidy up the narrative.
Yeah.
And then we get the credits as the Robot Carnival
Oh, that
struggles.
Sorry, wait a second, Louis. Louis just caught
Louis
up with
has
us
woken
here.
up.
No, it's all good. No, I remember what... yeah, that's all good.
You remember what we actually saw now?
Yes. We watched something called Robot Carnival. Do you remember
There
that?
was a robot that looked kind of like a chicken, and it was on a flying... It was on a hover bike.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it chased a dude with a moped.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that segment now.
And
Well
the devil robot devil's cup
Yes.
floweth over.
Yeah. I have nothing to add.
So the robot carnival struggles to get over one last sand dune. And now the film has come to a close. And so too, as we see flashbacks, the years of joy, and the many parades that the robot carnival presented itself upon. And now, it too, much like the millions of humans it has possibly slaughtered,
Yes.
has come to an end as it trips over itself climbing this sand dune, exploding as it falls apart, the Big O rolling away to inspire someone in 1999 to make a good show starring Roger Smith. And you get these credits, and it's fine. It's a perfectly fine spot to end here with just all the works of mice and men are all for naught. But then if you stick around to the end, this purple man with a large gauntlet declares that he is coming in Infinity War in 2018. No, but there is actually a stinger.
Yeah.
There's this final little touch of this final little relic of the Robot Carnival being found for some children. And they find it and are excited by, once again, dazzled by the technology and the beautiful dancing girl. And of course it's the Robot Carnival, so it explodes and kills them all. The end. Thanks for watching. Much like that final the end in Allegro and on Troppo, where suddenly just the devil snake pops up and bites the artist. Very much like that.
Ending these things seems very tough. Like, it seems like there's...
Yeah.
But this one almost, like, if you don't stick around for the stinger's, like, the film is clearly done as that giant O just rolls along the sand dunes.
Yeah.
That is the perfect spot to end. It's just, if you feel like sticking around after the credits. I mean, it's after the credits. It's a stinger. Just, you want that little bit more. Okay, here's some more people dying.
Yeah.
Them robots, man.
So I think I probably liked it overall.
Yeah.
Even though it did have Cloud in it. But it's
Yeah.
not enough to send it down.
Its highs are very high.
Yeah.
And besides Cloud, like, its lows, even Cloud, it's all interesting flaws.
Yeah. It never quite matches up to that first segment for me, which I probably, even listeners probably saw. I was more excited to talk about
Yep.
the first one than anything else. It just set things up so well. All I could think of was, like, I didn't, like, when I was watching, this is the first time I watched Robot Carnival. So I had no idea what was coming next, but all I could think of was, whatever comes next, this is a great setup for it. Wherever they want to go, this is the perfect setup for an anthology for robots.
For the tone and the
So,
themes.
Yeah. And it probably never quite reached as high as there, but it was still fun enough, and I enjoyed it. Yeah.
And there's a Blu-ray coming out next month.
Wow.
I'll get my plug in while I'm here. Discotheque Media have done an impeccable job on this release. Like, they had to go back to the sources to actually do a full remaster on this one. So it's been a very slow labor of love for them. There's a bunch of cool features. They went and remastered the streamlined theatrical trailer as well. Like, they dug in the crates for this release. So if you've seen the streaming, we use the stream copy that's just sitting on Crunchyroll at the moment. If you've got a Crunchyroll account, check it out there. If you haven't seen it, if you have seen it, cool. Check out the Blu-ray release.
Yeah,
Check it out.
Check it out. Thanks for watching. Rate, comment, subscribe. And so we reach Fantasia 2000. We have at last come full circle. Now, when I saw this film in 1999, I hated it. When I saw it in around 2006, I hated it. I don't hate this anymore. This film, after the highs we've had, and the lows, and the sheer volume of experimentation in the 60 years since Fantasia, and while some of these aren't particularly Fantasia works, just the exploration of animated anthologies, and at times experimenting with music, at times experimenting with short-form narrative and specific themes, and crashing and burning so many times, other times making really interesting art, other times just fun, consumable media. This is so bland. This is white bread from Coles. It's not even a nice panna da casa. I know. So, I guess in some ways this is a nice panna da casa. It
has no window dressing.
No nutritional value. It's pretty and it's vapid, and it's so self-congratulatory.
Yeah.
I feel better about it these days, because I know how close it is to the death of animation in Disney. Disney is a spectacular animation company, but this was around when Treasure Planet was in production. And although Treasure Planet was not the last traditionally animated film, it was the one that signed its death warrant in the company. Because that movie cost a lot of money, and Michael Eisner went, I don't want to be spending this much money on animation. And man, those Pixar guys seem to be doing things much more cheaply than we are. That's transition to new technology. That's much cheaper and quicker. And so this really is, as far as just on a technical level, those late 90s, that turn of the century peak, the absolute peak of traditional animation. And this is some of its final breaths. And they're for something this bland.
Yeah. My favorite thing about this was its runtime.
Yeah, hour and 15 minutes. Shortest thing we've seen, half the length of Fantasia.
Felt it too. I felt very fast.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a bit. Actually,
I was surprised when the credits rolled.
Yeah. This is a rushed through kind of thing.
So, Symphony No. 5 by Ludwig van Beethoven, introduced by some archived recordings of Deems Taylor. This is interesting because we watched Blu-ray of this, much like we did for Fantasia. This one had the actual audio of Deems Taylor. He was overdubbed with someone else on the Fantasia Blu-ray. That was neat. So they used a bunch of the audio to remind people that sometimes they just want to do Winamp visualizers. And so once again we open...
Yep.
Dun 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 dun! Dun 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 dun! And then out comes the Winamp visualizer and it's a bunch of butterflies and bats going whoosh. Cool.
Yep.
There's almost narrative, so it is better than the opener to Fantasia. You got the nice butterfly whooshes and the nasty bat things going whoosh. And they whoosh around a bit, and the nice ones whoosh into a pillar of light at the end. Cool. It's a pretty obvious choice when you're choosing another opener for Fantasia. Because it goes dun 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 dun! Dun 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 dun! Cool.
Yeah. Actually, maybe I was doing something at this
You
point.
you were fiddling around.
Yeah, I thought the whales were the first part.
And it's then introduced, and yes, that's when the big changes happen, because
The biggest change.
the next sequence is not introduced by Deems Taylor, or any sort of music critic. It's Steve Martin. Hi, Steve Martin.
Yeah, that felt really, really strange.
It's-
It got stranger, but it was even then when Steve
These
Martin showed up.
sequences, the camera used and the lighting used, when you think of how spectacularly stylized the lighting and staging for the orchestra is in Fantasia, and how much we gushed over what a cool bit of showmanship that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's these weird crystal panes all around near the roof, and you can kind of see in detail, they're not all completely in shadow and profile.
Yeah.
It feels cheap, these sequences.
Yeah, like they just got him overnight, and the rest of the next.
Yeah, they just fly in and they just used whatever camera was around and didn't really pay attention to the lighting.
Yeah.
Just hi there, I'm a segment on Raw. I'm a talk show. It did feel like those celebrity cameos in the back on Raw. On Monday Night Raw, this is a wrestling reference.
Oh.
Where someone will be walking and halfway through talking about some wrestling feud, and then it's just, oh, hi there, Kermit the Frog.
Yeah.
Oh, hi there, LeBron James. And they just kind of walk into the frame and go, well, hey there, the WWE is pretty cool. You're a bit of a geek, because I'm a celebrity. Haha. That's what these, especially the Steve Martin one, where just these flat jokes of, haha, I don't know what a violin is.
Yeah. He throws the violin stick and he's like, "Can I have another one of them violin sticks?"
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a bow.
Yeah.
People have known this for centuries, mate. And then they always then followed up with, most of them followed up with some comments by one of the musicians in the orchestra. This was Itzhak Perlman, who was a violinist, and they're all clearly reading off prompters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And
all
here-
kind of puts it in this kind of no one really wants to be there kind of vibe.
Yeah, it feels like they're
weird
going
kind of
through
vibe.
these motions.
Yeah.
It kind of lacked the charm that the original had.
Because the presentation's also cheap.
Yeah, absolutely.
And-
it feels like Walt's not involved in this because that was kind of it was all his
And
idea.
there was this sense of we and togetherness of, this is something we are trying to present to you.
Yeah.
And this one, the verbiage is all, the animators at Disney. And they're treated as this unknowable blob
Yeah.
that aren't really people. It's this one hive collective consciousness that spits out Disney content.
Yeah, I mean they frame it that way when they're talking about the next segment. It's like
Yeah.
when you think of this piece of music, wow, you think of that. But the animators at Disney thought they would do something different.
Yeah, and that's what is exactly what happens here with the Pines of Rome by Ottorino Respighi, which is interesting because we praise the Rite of Spring for the fact that it is a thing which says it's about spring, but it really felt like one where people listened to the music and drew visuals which matched that. Which thought, hey, this kind of sounds like something weird and primal and birthing and chaotic, so like, it makes sense to talk about the dawn of time. This one specifically feels like this one is clearly stated to be about Rome and the March of the Legionnaires, so you'll specifically try to think of the least Roman thing possible. And
What is-
so, flying humpback whales.
Yeah.
The
Cool.
least Roman thing ever.
The whales have dated. The whales. There's a bunch of computers throughout this film. The whales have definitely aged the worst,
Yeah.
and it really comes through at its most. It's kind of okay when it's just the small nuclear family pod,
Yeah.
but when the whole big pod, the full pod, comes out at the end, that has aged poorly because the rhythm does not match the movements of the whales. They just do willy-nilly their own thing on their own pre-programmed routines.
Yeah, the way I put it in my notes was that it's still pretty at times, but the CGI just doesn't work as well as the.
And it's such a shame because the backgrounds and scenery are gorgeous throughout this. The sky looks wonderful, the water is wonderful.
Yeah.
The coloring and a lot of the scenes when the baby whale is trapped in the cave, like that's just gorgeous to look at.
It adds to that cheap vibe for some reason as well. Just seeing it just doesn't look. It doesn't have that handcrafted kind of feel that even though Fantasia could be quite boring at times, you always got a sense of these people tried really.
This
really
was
hard.
an expensive, complex piece of art.
Yeah.
And I always forget the full name of the tech. There was a series of computer tech that was developed around this time in Disney, which was basically you can construct elaborate CG backdrops through which you can then basically move to any camera point you want and then just draw on top of that your traditional animation. Things like, there's a lot of sequences in Disney's Tarzan, if you remember it, where he's rapidly sliding along through complex vine networks. That used this technique. Every shot in Treasure Planet uses this technique, which is why the film was so goddamn expensive. And there it works brilliantly because it adds to the bizarre futuristic, almost neon Victorian vibe that film has going on. Whereas here, when you're using that sort of thing to just draw these whales, it feels like it's the wrong perspective. Where instead of CG backdrop, which you put traditional animation on, you've got the CG creatures in a traditional background. And it just looks a bit awkward. It has aged poorly. And it's not really saying anything either.
Oh yeah, like. Well, I mean, I wasn't expecting it to, because I remember the first Fantasia.
Yeah, Fantasia doesn't say anything much either.
Yeah,
and it hasn't learned anything.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't too surprised at the story, not there being much of a story, because I just like that's a regular Fantasia.
Yep.
But it not looking like it's not entirely fair. It's not like it looks bad. It looks bad compared to the previous one.
Yeah, when you're looking worse than a film made 60 years earlier,
Yeah.
then you've made a poor artistic choice.
Yeah. And the whales.
When was Robot Carnival made?
I'm not talking about Robot Carnival.
Oh, we're talking about.
You mean the
Fantasia.
original Fantasia?
Yeah, Fantasia.
My apologies.
That's okay. Yeah, the whales really were like. As soon as I saw them, it was like immediately
Fake.
just get, yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is what's happening now. Like, it's a really bad way to start things off, really. And
But it does pick up then, after that,
sure.
as we get a Rhapsody in Blue by George Gershwin, introduced by Quincy Jones and Ralph Grierson.
You sure it's not Chuck Jones?
No.
Yeah, this was a fun little segment.
Yeah, there's this buzzword that popped up in the 2000s. Super flat. This is a very super flat sequence.
Yeah, I can
That's
see that.
low shading, starkly minimalistic, intentionally cheap to make a point. Just there's this running theme, unfortunately, of these goddamn New Yorkers reminding us in all these anthology movies about how New York they are, and how New York is so New York, and I love New York.
New York.
Even in the Depression, New York was the best place ever because we imported jazz. We took jazz and we got some white people to add some orchestra to it, so now it's palatable, and it isn't the evil devil music. There's nice connections and narratives here, though.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of people who are all unsatisfied with their lives and inadvertently contribute to each other's happiness. And it flows well.
Yeah, this was very charming, I think would be the word. Also fun, energetic. It was
Not Disney.
Zesty.
that's a good word. Yeah.
Yeah, not very Disney. This feels like a Warner Brothers short.
Yeah.
It zipped around, and it was just you could feel energy
Yeah.
kind of just flow back into you after we watched Heavy Metal and we watched River Carnival, and especially with the whale sequence feeling so flat.
Mm-hmm.
There was definitely a feeling that
Yep.
we could have
Yeah,
gone
this
into a
is
bit of
the
a coma.
yeah,
but
this is the kick up the ass.
yeah. This was like, oh, okay. There's fun things in the world again. It's like it's this.
Which is perfect because that's what it's about.
Yeah, yeah. Because everyone was. Yeah, as you say, people were.
People are dissatisfied with their lives,
Yeah.
and then they're able to unwittingly contribute to each other's happiness.
Yeah. There's a lot of joy in this one. It's hard to. It's another one of those annoying things where it's hard to talk about it too much because there's not that much that happens. It's more just. It's more just a fun thing to enjoy.
I mean, we
And
could
watch.
talk about things like parents forcing their child into all these artistic lessons, and how, like, that is an interesting depiction of New York gentrification right
I
there.
guess.
Like, you move into the cultured areas and take your children; they will be cultured too. And
Yeah, you move into the
Tribeca
And she's
area
just-
and you force them to do these things.
Yeah, and you buy up all the housing, so then the people who are making the art cannot afford to live there anymore. Hey, your kid will ignore it all because she just wants to play with a ball anyway.
Yeah. But I think going
The man who just wants a
to
job.
like too serious with like the thematic kind of doesn't. It's not what it is. What it is a very fun, happy.
It's about the big
jaunt
picture. Don't sweat the
through New York.
details.
Yeah, it's
Look at how New York it is.
yeah.
It's so vibrant. There's all these different people. And they all have the same desire, that same pursuit of happiness. Also, there's that wonderful shot of the crowd in the train.
Yes.
That is the image, the first time I saw this, that is the one image that really, really stuck with me, and always has. Just that wonderful shot of everyone stuck in the train, and then as they all push out of the train, and they're stuck in the exact same frame of animation, that complete with their hands still trying to hold up to the handrails, as they were just pushed along in this one blob, until they finally get out of the lift. They get to a building in this one mob, squeeze into the lift in that same pose, and then finally they can break out when they get out of the lift.
Yeah.
That is a great little sequence.
And that's what it's, I think, all about, really. It's about just a lot of neat little visual gags
Yep.
and sequences. And it's just a nice joy to watch, really, for like 5 minutes. It's just like, okay, yeah. I can enjoy this. So yeah, this is a good pick-me-up.
Yep.
after
That's one of the best parts of 2000, really.
Yeah.
That sequence.
And it feels very different from everything else in it.
Yep. And then, Bette Midler appears,
That was whoa.
along
This-
with
why is this
pianist
person
Stefan
here?
Bronfman, for some rejected ideas, including Flight of the Valkyries.
I want that.
And then they laughingly say, ho ho ho, and that wacky Salvador Dali came up with baseball as a metaphor for life. Whoa, and it's just, screw you, Unchen Andalou is awesome. Salvador Dali made a better film than you've ever been in, Bette Midler. It's like 7 minutes, and it's dreams. How can we visualize dreams in film? The answer is time skips. 8 years later. 18 hours earlier.
Yeah, man, Unchen Andalou. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, an Andalusian dog. It was, as we just said, he was trying to visualize dreams.
Okay.
And it's this great little art house piece. It's very short, very early into film. Does some really cool stuff. I'd have liked a Salvador Dali Disney short.
That would have been really cool.
Well, we did-
Especially baseball's a metaphor for life. Dude, how many great baseball episodes of anime have there been over the years? Like, you think of like the Samurai Champloo or the Dragon Ball Super episode. Or any of those other many ones. Soro Kakuro Shoujo had a good one. You can do stuff with that premise. Don't mock it, Disney. But it's okay. They found the perfect story.
Yes.
Using Piano Concerto No. 2, Allegro, Opus 102 by Dmitri Shostakovich.
It's a great name, actually.
Adapting Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale, The Steadfast Tin Man. And Louis' face, as soon as they said Hans Christian Andersen. It was the face of, oh no. They're going to remove the themes again, aren't they? Sure enough.
Sure is a Little Mermaid.
The execution here is just this nice. It is a very nice Hollywood setup and payoff 3-act structure. But it's. The source material is about this Tin Man with one leg who's steadfast. So. The point of the story is that in the story Hans Christian Andersen wrote, is this twin soldier sees a nice ballerina, gets attacked by a jack-in-a-box. The jack-in-a-box is possessed by a goblin. This is specifically specified. He's then knocked out of the window, falls into a sewer, goes on a boat, has to pay a fee to a rat, to the Rat King, to get out of the sewer. Falls out of the boat, gets eaten by a fish. The fish winds up getting bought by the original owner's mum. He gets spat out of the fish, and the kid finds him, takes him back to his room, gets possessed by the goblin, and throws the Tin Man into the fire. And the ballerina goes, damn, I'm sad, and jumps into the fire with him. And the Tin Man melts and comes the shape of a heart. as the ballerina burns into a piece of coal. The point was, the Tin Man does nothing, and is completely subject to everything else around him. The point was, blindly accepting fate is shit. Take some ownership of yourself, was the point of this story. And so instead we have here just the steadfast Tin Man. He continues to be passive, but then he gets everything he wants at the end anyway. Because it's a Disney thing and you gotta have that happy ending.
Yeah, it's what you described there is similar to what happened in this particular segment.
It's the same up until the final act.
Yeah.
Except there's no goblin. There's no goblins here. Just the Jack-in-the-Box operating out of his own lust.
Yeah.
And the boy just finds the toy and takes it back. And then he uses his own wits and courage to trick the Jack-in-the-Box into falling into the fire.
Yeah. Yeah, in my notes I have story complete, coherent, boring.
Yep.
And
Certainly you are a big fan of executing things well.
sure.
And tying things up in nice ways. Like, you like to have people striving to just make a good, satisfying story.
Sure.
And this is a case of what happens when you prioritize that over other things, is that you can wind up with just this piece of toast with
Yeah.
nothing on it.
I mean, you take any kind of, like, opinion or thought to its logical extreme, you're gonna get a problem. You know, like, there's just nothing to this. It's not a...
Like, I don't fault for the most part. I like to prioritize. I like noble failures a lot more than you do.
Sure.
And but in like wanting to be entertained and enjoy things is a perfectly fine goal. And here's a case of just something that's just ticks all the boxes, meets its KPIs, does not strive to achieve.
Sure.
Either doesn't understand the source material or doesn't care.
Then I guess doesn't care. I think that would be the that's a better guess, I think.
Yeah.
Coding overload.
Well, that's everything.
Carnival of the Animals by Camille Saint-Saëns, specifically the finale. This is kind of perfect that Chuck Jones did a 20-minute 20-minute to half-hour sequence animating this music, and now Disney finally gets their own. We did it, baby. And now it's flamingos with a yo-yo. James L. Jones says this line. It is so contrived and so turn-of-the-century Disney, the delivery of this wacky gag. Which is a shame, because this sequence is fun. It does not waste your time. It is a couple of minutes of some synchronized swimming and dancing by some flamingos. And then this one other flamingo who's playing with a yo-yo. The faces he makes reminds me a lot of Allegro on Troppo. The sort of cheeky, rebellious grin he has.
Sure.
And I think it's kind of interesting, because this is one that you can really compare to the Dvorak piece. The Mussolini guy one. Yeah, that one's about...
Yeah.
That one's about a guy bucking the trend and inadvertently becoming an influencer, and then abusing that power.
Yes.
Whereas here is one where it's all about, this guy bucks the trend, and what a hero he is for doing it. You know, power of individual, American dream. It's right here.
Yeah.
It's reflected in just one guy is different from the rest, and the interpretations that these two films get out of that concept.
Yeah, I'm glad you found something from this one. Like you say, it doesn't waste any time. That's kind of true, but
It wasted your time because you had to watch it?
It wasted my time because it was so short that it might as well not have even been there to me. Like, there's like a difference between brevity getting to a point and brevity to the point where it's like there's something here. Like
It's a 2-minute squash match.
Sure.
We're here to give you a circus of animated entertainment. And here is a little spot. Here's a little spot where some things go whoosh. There's actually a lot of the visuals are also reminiscent of a lot of early Silly Symphonies shorts by Disney, where a lot of them, the skeleton dance is a classic example of this love of synchronization and complete symmetry across the frame. And there's a lot of that here, and it looks cool. They hadn't done it in years, so good on them.
Yeah, it looks good for as long as it lasts, which isn't very long, and then it just kind of disappears.
And it's got a yo-yo, so it's clearly by Mr. Squiggle.
Yeah, it kind of just felt like it was just a throwaway. It almost felt like repurposed or just something they found in a vault somewhere. Like it's that
digging in the
fast.
crates.
Yeah, just hey, there's this. Like it felt like throwing something at people,
Just
like,
Roy Disney taking a puff of his cigar, just
Yeah.
going, we need to find some animation with music to pay tribute to my father.
So yeah, it's a thing
Give-
that happens.
A yo-yo, 2 flamingos.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was neat. It was fun while it lasted.
Neat.
Cool. The Sorcerer's Apprentice by Paul Ducasse. Introduced by Penn and Teller. The best part of Fantasia 2000 is a live-action sequence by Penn and Teller doing their shtick.
Yeah, that was great. Because it's Penn and Teller.
Yep, it's cool. They, of course, we didn't mention this with Steve Martin, that he has this line of Fantasia was supposed to be this yearly occurrence, as I talked about before. And here it is now, at long last, where 19 years after this film was made and there has not been a third Fantasia.
Well, they were so uninterested in making this one, it seems, from just the general
Oh,
presentation. of
Roy
this,
pushed
that-
it. This was very much a passion project by Roy.
Roy,
Roy Disney.
Roy Disney. Okay.
Walt Disney's son.
Doesn't
Okay.
feel like a passion project.
Yeah.
I was just like, I want Fantasia. More Fantasia. I'm gonna do the audio commentary for it as well. This is still very much the Michael Eisner era of Disney. And so Roy just pulling rank to just go, no, I want a Fantasia. And I want one by the end of the century. So we can call it Fantasia 2000.
Because that's always the greatest idea.
Yeah, to push something out for such a spurious reason.
The big thing that strikes me when watching, because we could have just skipped it, but we had a studio audience who had never seen this before, and I feel that there's value in seeing it in the context of the rest of Fantasia 2000, just because it's this neat little moment that you can't that happens if you watch film, but you can really, really feel it because of its positioning in this film, of just how much the tempo of editing and blocking of scenes has changed as film has developed as a medium. Because audiences are used to processing visual information and interpreting it, and grasping ideas and plots and circumstances. And so the better people are at interpreting things, the faster you can cut things. This is an inevitable part of pretty much any art form, where the more accustomed an audience is to interpreting it, the more complex you can make it and the quicker you can do it. And so a lot of early films are just slow because audiences and artists are still working out what to do with it. And this feels so much slower. It's really nicely paced. But you can really, really feel that transition in pacing that has happened over the last century in film by having this sequence here.
It's still like one of the better sequences. Like,
It's still one of the best looking ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
Look at that water. Holy crap.
I would say the best looking. I don't think there's one that looks better than this. In
No.
Fantasia 2000?
not in Fantasia 2000.
I'm kind of willing.
Like the
I'm a
last
sucker
one?
for the Firebirds
Sure.
freestyle. There's the Firebird itself.
Oh,
I'm a sucker for flame-based freestyling.
Sure. Okay, it's. I'd say the water maybe.
But
is
like,
the best
yeah,
thing.
like the mise en scène is still so good in the
Yeah.
Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Just everything about the sequence is just really well constructed.
Yeah.
Scenes packed with meaning, the ominous shadows as Mickey contemplates the automation, the everything about the framing of when he picks up the axe is so perfectly done to demonstrate there is an axe here. He should use this axe. This axe is sharp. Oh god, look at the carnage. So good.
Careful with that axe.
And because like this being the last one of this group of anthology movies, like because otherwise Fantasia 2000 was mostly pretty flat, it was nice to watch one of the good ones from the first.
Yeah, one of the two good ones.
Yeah, so we finally like it was a nice end point considering Fantasia 2000 was going to give us a good end point. It was nice that they just threw regular Fantasia at us to give us that kind of full circle kind of.
Yeah, we got more circles within circles.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Pichy and Pal's Ring Theory Show.
Oh god.
We'll be exploring synchronicity across the entirety of the Disney animated canon and the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep.
Okay.
So excited for that.
Welcome to our personal hell.
Yes.
This is our 9th ring of hell.
As this ends, we have Mickey Mouse and Glenn Wapowski
Oh, yeah.
doing the thing
That
where he
segment.
pops up and greets him, just like before. But then it cuts to Mickey running away from that orchestra and coming back to the 1999 orchestra. And man, so as I said last time, part of the reason the Fantasia project happened was because of the Sorcerer's Apprentice and trying to find a vehicle to relaunch Mickey Mouse as an IP and to make him hip again and interesting again. And this film is made, Fantasia 2000 is made at almost the peak of Mickey Mouse's utter irrelevance. He had spent years and years as just the symbol of the brand. He doesn't get TV shows, and if he does, no one watches them. They're on, like, Disney Kids or whatever. So maybe if you've got enough cable channels, you might see Mickey Mouse. He's this figure, he's this empty, soulless mascot that you hug when you go to the theme park. He's this thing that your 0 to 1 year old child's clothing has marked on him. He means nothing. And he comes out and he just goes, "Hi there. Oh, cool. I'm Mickey Mouse. Could you like me to find my friend? Oh no, I ran into a woman's room. Oh, there's Donald." And Donald's immediately way more charismatic because he's in a shower going, "Oh shit, look at the time." And you go, man, that guy's already way more interesting. And Donald's already not interesting in this period. And it took another 14 years after this point for John Lasseter to pop up and grab Paul Rudish and say, "Hey man, you're not part of the Disney machine. Make some Mickey shorts, please. I think that'd be cool." 14 years that Mickey Mouse lived in this hell after this point of decades being irrelevant. And then finally it was just, do whatever. It's like the ultimate argument, one of the many arguments that you can make against the Mickey Mouse clause and the constant pushing for maintaining the IP. They just sat on it doing nothing artistically, years after everyone who created Mickey Mouse was dead. And it took someone who wasn't even part of the Disney system to actually make him interesting. Have you seen any of those modern Mickey shorts?
I have not.
So, like
Studio
they
answers.
run the full gamut of interesting to bad. Like some of them are very nice and safe and friendly. Then you get ones like Mickey, Donald, and Goofy are somewhere in Texas and they're broke and can't fix their car, but you can win some money at the rodeo if you survive the bucking horse. So they can't find a bronco to buck. So Mickey does everything he can to piss off Donald. So Donald will snap, as Donald is wont to do, and freak out and stomp around. And Mickey rides Donald, gets a record long because he knows how to handle Donald's fury. He doesn't make any money because it turns out they don't actually have any prize money because no one goes to the rodeo anymore. But then a Texan oil baron pops up, goes, "That's a mighty fine horse you got there. Mind if I buy it?" Buys, and oh no, we couldn't sell my friend. And then he talks about how like all the women and the lifestyle you lead, and Donald immediately goes, "Damn, I'm sold. I'll be your bronco." So Mickey Mouse gets like $500 for the sale, and Donald just drives away in this gigantic oil baron's limo with this hot tub and like all these women jumping on him. "So long, suckers!" Donald yells, laughing as he drives off. Mickey and Goofy walk over, pay for their car repairs, stride off into the sunset, and Goofy's all, "Should we tell Daisy about this?" What does Mickey say? "Nope!"
Wow.
Perfect. This is a Mickey Mouse that is interesting. Because he's a dick.
Not the Mickey Mouse from Fantasia 2000, which also looks not very good. Like him going from his.
He looks as cheap and soulless as the lighting in these sequences.
Yeah, he looked really bad compared to what he looked like in the the Sorcerer's Apprentice
Yeah.
sequence. It was really jarring to me because, like, obviously I
He's just
saw
this-
him right
yeah.
there, and he just jumps.
You
in
saw
this
him,
3D.
and you saw him being this guy who thinks things, who can be proud, who can be lazy, who can be remorseful. And he's just, hi there, I'm the soulless Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. He looked bad and he acted bad.
But then we got Pomp and Circumstance, Marches 1 through 4 by Edward Elgar. Da, na, 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 na.
Everyone knows this song.
This is a real reminder. We've just talked about, well, I've just talked about how Mickey Mouse has finally actually changed. This really highlights how different, because Disney always maintains this veneer of this complete family-friendly safeness. Safety, I think, is a better word. And it does evolve, and it does change with the times. And this was a real standout moment of just how much Disney's internal politics have changed in the last 20 years. I don't think they would make a short about Noah's Ark in a big budget film anymore. It's interesting.
I'm pretty sure there was a. No, I think there might have been a movie. Like, it wasn't big budget, but it was like a comedy. I think it was. They did something like that. But that's.
No, that was
Yeah,
years and
but-
years and years ago as well.
Oh, okay.
That was mid-2000s.
Oh, okay. Is that a while ago now?
Yes.
Oh, damn.
That's like 15 years, man.
Oh, okay. That's fair enough, actually.
I mean, remember, we've had the Darren Aronofsky Noah movie since then.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, boy, is that an interesting, bizarre film.
Okay. Yeah, but
Fascinating
onto this
film.
segment there.
Oh, we can talk about that some other time. Maybe we should do a Darren Aronofsky night.
Okay.
Or I just play all those interviews with Chris Jericho about The Wrestler.
Yeah, I really liked this segment.
It's fun.
I found it strangely nice. This
The
is
Noah's Ark
this
one.
is the Donald Duck.
Where Donald Duck is
Yeah.
Noah,
This
even though
was-
Noah is also Noah.
Yeah. This
And he
was-
just outsources his labor, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a cute little section.
It grew on me as it went. Like, I wasn't that interested in it at first. But I don't know, I strangely enough, it was Donald Duck's act of selfless. Well, okay, so it's the basic Noah's Ark kind of story.
Hey, Donald, get the animals.
Yeah, and he does. It's actually pretty good of him, actually. He didn't stuff that up at all. And they're all going in, but then he misses seeing his wife,
Daisy.
Daisy. He doesn't realize that she's in the boat, so he thinks that she's still in danger.
In the house.
And he immediately just jumps out the boat and is like trying to get to her, which is, I don't know.
It's even funny when you realize that they're waterfowls. They're ducks.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I feel like even a duck in a storm might have some trouble. But
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I've just been kind of conditioned to think that all Disney characters kind of jerks at this point, like Mickey and
Mostly
Daffy
Mickey.
and yeah.
Like Daffy.
What?
Isn't Daffy?
He's Warner Brothers.
Oh, whatever. They're all the same. to me.
He's the Warner Brothers.
I don't really care. But Donald is, I don't know. It's a basic story where he thinks that Daisy is
gone, and she thinks he's
and
gone.
He's gone.
And in true Don Bluth fashion, they keep missing each other by a hair's width. This is a film which has a very Warner Brothers-esque sequence earlier on, and now has a Don Bluth-esque sequence. Just turn around! Turn around!
Right there.
Yeah. I don't know if it's weird that something we were talking before how the Tin Man thing was just very basic and simple and complete, and this one also was like it's nothing new. It was very similar. For some
But
reason,
Donald sells it well.
Is it Donald that makes it right?
They clearly matter to each other.
Yeah.
And do enough to get you to go, oh, they're sad. And there's a bunch of moments where just the other animals just rub it in.
Yeah.
There's a spot where Donald has to release the dove to see if the land is dried yet. And immediately goes, nah, I'm sticking with my wife. God damn it, get out there!
And there's friggin' rabbits that apparently had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the
on
rabbits did what rabbits do.
boat. Yes.
Or the other thing rabbits do, not the good thing. They did the bad thing, which is having babies, not the good thing, which is getting Khaleesi. Or myxomatosis.
I think another thing that probably helped was I think the song,
I'm a farmer.
while the song has been heard so many times, I think that it was just great to listen to it again. It's a good song. It's a great little piece.
Well, it's nice to see pomp and circumstance used in something outside of just the insular cultures it normally appears in.
And yeah, like it's... I think in something like Fantasia, whether it's Fantasia 1 or Fantasia 2000, I think this is kind of the best that you can probably hope for. You're not going to get anything too interesting or unique, but you can get something that at least is satisfying.
You feel a bit warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, like this, like... If we watched this after heavy metal... Like, if this was the first thing that I watched after heavy metal, I probably would have loved it. Because it's like the difference between just like feeling horrible and dirty compared to something like this, where it's just nice.
Kind of homely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't that interesting, but I enjoyed watching it. I liked it when they got back together again. It was nice. So like there was like an amulet or
A locket.
a locket, yeah. That she had, but she dropped, and I think it was actually pretty well set up, wasn't it? Because I think she dropped it once.
She drops it right at the start. Yeah,
And then he picks it up for her.
There's a full setup reminder payoff for
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah. So it works well. And how they find each other again is that she drops it yet again, and then he finds it. And
Yep.
It's like, oh, okay, she must still be here, and then they find it. And they touch it. At
They
the same
grab
time.
it at the same
Yeah,
time.
and then they
Both
touch,
gotta
and they
pick it
look
up.
up. It's nicely done.
Yeah, I teared up a little.
Yeah.
Some heartstrings were pulled.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Like we were saying before, like wanting a complete full story. Like
There's
that's a
ticking
good
the
example.
boxes,
Yeah.
and then there's having characters.
Yeah, they ticked the boxes, and it also had the characters, which I think is good.
And finally, our night at Bald Mountain, 2000. The Firebird, 1919 shortened version. There was a full ballet originally written by Igor Stravinsky of the Firebird, which is why I listed this before when it last appeared as the segments of the Princess's Khorovod and the Infernal Dance of King Kachi. However, this is the 1919 shortened version where he just took the best hits from the ballet and made it into a little piece to play at concerts.
Sorry. Very pretty. I would
Oh,
say that
this
much.
is gorgeous. The team working on this explicitly said we watched a bunch of Ghibli films and wanted to do a Ghibli thing. So themes of nature and big sweeping scenery. Here is some sort of animistic spring spirit or water spirit. It's ambiguous because it emerges from a drop of ice, dripping off of some ice, but it's colored green at some points and colored blue at others. I don't think they had made up their minds on whether it was the spirit of spring or a water elemental.
I guess, it kind of makes sense if it's spring, because, ice, winter,
Yep.
spring comes after
Mm-hmm.
winter.
Yep.
I find it hard to describe it in words what she looked like in terms of when she was in full flow. But I will say that it looked very pretty. Like when she was like going.
It's a green
across-
wave.
Yeah.
A green wave with a happy face.
Yeah. I wish there was a better way to describe it because it was very, very pretty. Like it was gorgeous the way she's like going across the land as this.
Yes, this is a
this
visual
force.
delight.
Yeah.
This is a visual delight, and I hate this sequence. This is what really riled me up about 2000 the first times I saw it, beyond just the blandness, is that this music is used in Allegro and Troppo for its climax, its night at Bald Mountain, which is, of course, the devil discovers that the true evil is not just humanity, it is unfettered capitalism and consumerism.
Yeah.
Also police brutality.
Yeah.
And here we have the same music coming back for the most banal of messages. Like, there's several readings you can do with this. You can just have it as it's the natural depiction of here is winter moves to spring, which moves to summer, which moves to autumn, back to spring. Or you can read it as this is just a volcano, and volcanoes are a part of nature, and they provide, and life comes back even stronger than before when there's a volcano, because they enrich in the soil. Or you could read this as the Firebird represents humanity, which is certainly the reading I had the first few times I saw this. There's the spirit of nature, and there's the embodiment of man, which makes a big mess of everything, but no matter what man does, nature will always come through. And I disagree. I'm not sure if that's what it wants to assert, but that thought's always in my mind, and my thought is, no. Humans can irreparably damage ecosystems. And either way, this just comes off as so bland, so banal, and it wouldn't annoy me so much if this music hadn't already been used for something so much more.
I don't know. I think like music can be used. To me, it's actually like a really remarkable thing. The way you can.
Yeah, you can get so
use
much out of
pieces.
using the same thing.
Yeah, like I don't think using it here makes Troppo worse.
Oh, it doesn't make a Troppo worse. It's just you could have used different music. There's a lot of music out there. Also, you reinterpret, and especially since the film gleefully talks in earlier presentations about, well, there's this stated theme, but we came up with something better.
Sure.
And then here's the Firebird, so we will give you a Firebird.
Yeah, I guess maybe just because what I was like, it's like a thing with expectations, I guess. Like I would never expect Disney to do a Fantasia that's anything closely resembling.
You're never gonna
Troppo.
get an Allegro on Troppo, but
Yeah, like I'm not sure exactly what.
it's just having
I
the
would've-
same. It's just having that same music used, where it's just I know what this has represented in the past,
Sure.
and so seeing it used by Disney to make something this bland annoys me personally. This is a personal thing.
Yeah, because I don't know. I didn't.
You
Maybe
don't
maybe
need
that-
to rise up and destroy Disney because it has ruined the sanctity of Allegro on Troppo. No. This is just a personal annoyance.
Sure. Like, I didn't get man at all in that. I thought it was just a very... Because, like, the original Fantasia had a lot of stuff where it was just like, we're going to have a story about nature, and it's not going to have a theme. It's just going to be nature. And I feel like it was more for kids, really, than anything else. It's like, hey, look at this cool visual way of showing you how something very basic in nature works. I just forget now what it exactly was in... I think there was,
all
like, something
the
about
Tchaikovsky
evolution,
stuff.
and yeah,
There was the
Yeah.
Rite of Spring one, which was the dinosaurs one,
yeah,
and
yeah,
a lot of the Tchaikovsky
yeah.
for the various dancing flowers and things.
And I know
Mushrooms,
that,
the Chinese mushrooms.
yeah, I know the counterpoint to what I'm saying is that, like, there's always a theme, even if you don't think there is one. But I don't think,
Being apolitical is itself political.
yeah, I would say with this one, I don't think it was about humanity. I just think it was about
Just nature.
This is just nature. Now, you can come up with something, and you can say there are things hidden away underneath it, but I don't think there was anything overt.
Well, I mean, it's just straightforward enough in its images that
Yeah.
you can read in as much or as little as you want with this.
And I feel like it being what it is, and that is Fantasia by Disney. I mean, like, as I said, I feel like I had no more expectations other than hopefully it would look pretty. And at times it didn't look pretty. Like, not in this particular segment, but I mean in the movie as a whole. Like when they used XX CGI, say with the whales, that's what I was disappointed. So with this, I guess I was just happy that it looked pretty and that it was over. But yeah, I was just happy that it ended on a pretty note.
Yep.
Because I don't think it was going to end on anything better. It was just going to look pretty. Yeah. But it did look very, very pretty. Like, especially the Firebird.
So there we have it. We have watched a bunch of movies, which I like to tie together as a vehicle to get people to watch heavy metal, so I can see how they feel.
It's so funny you say that because I was about to say it'd be a better suite without heavy metal. Like,
Of course.
Wouldn't that be a better suite if it didn't have this horrible trash in it? And then you just say, look, this
Narrative
is the whole point.
arcs need a low point. And we go low.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I dropped that limbo stick down,
I
mate.
mean,
You're gonna bend if you want to truly appreciate art.
well, other than heavy metal, this was mostly pretty okay. I feel like Robot Carnival and Troppo are probably the highlights of it.
Yep.
And then you have the two bland pieces of bread.
Yeah, there's a
top
bread
of-
on the sandwich,
Yeah.
and then you got some meat, and you got some cheese.
Yeah. and then the spit that the asshole who was making the
Yep.
thing is heavy metal.
That's why you make your own damn sandwich.
Yeah, that's the moral of this.
Don't watch heavy metal.
That is the moral.
Louis, do you have thoughts on a favorite one, or?
It would be a toss-up between parts of Allegro non Troppo and parts of Robot Carnival.
Yeah.
Are you glad that I put you through this?
It was certainly an experience.
Yeah. I wouldn't have seeked them out, personally.
Of course not. That's why I made you do this.
Yeah.
That's what we'll be getting a lot of this year. I'm gonna...
I suppose so. I'm not happy I watched heavy metal. I don't think I'll say... I'll never be happy that I watched heavy metal. That was just an hour of my life taken away. No, it was worse than that.
It was 90 minutes of your life taken away.
Like, it's not like if I was forced to stay in a blank room with walls and nothing to do, that's an hour of 90 minutes of my life taken away. This was worse than that. This was an offensive experience.
This
was
bad.
What's
Yeah.
that sci-fi movie where the currency is time? Time in your life? Isn't it just like In Time or something it's called?
No, I don't remember the title, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what I've done. I have extracted
You've extracted time as well as
the
just...
time financial exchange.
Yes.
The time cryptocurrency has been passed through my blockchain, baby.
So in that with heavy metal, yes.
The
I'm
chrono
not
dollars.
happy. But I'm really happy that I saw parts of Troppo, especially the cat one, the one.
Yep.
Yeah, that one was really good. I guess I'm happy that I saw Carnival and Troppo overall. And Fantasia I probably could leave or take. Like, I'm not gonna...
Yep.
I'm not unhappy or happy that I watched them.
I'm glad this is pretty much the response I was hoping for.
Yeah. That you stole 90 minutes of my life. That was the response you wanted. But I don't want to focus on heavy metal because it doesn't deserve to be focused on. I'll focus instead on Allegro and Troppo and say that there was some great stuff in that.
Yeah.
And it's given me a perspective on what anthologies can be, on what the good things they can be, the bad things they can be.
And that they're hard to make.
Yeah.
They're really hard to assemble effectively.
Because you have to kind of make... It's like you have to do two things. You have to... Each one has to be unique in of itself. To like have a reason to be there.
While
but you
also
need to have...
being valuable as part of the overall experience.
Yeah. And I think that second thing is actually the hardest part. And I think it shows that really...
It's one of the biggest strengths of Robot Carnival is how well it positions all of its material that it's been given.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it shows a lot that the two best ones are the ones that did that particular part the best.
Yep.
Both Troppo and Carnival probably had the best through line.
As well as the strongest theming.
Yeah. Which probably is the reason why.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, so I'll say overall I'm positive just because it's an experience watching them all, and I have new...
A new lease on life.
New lease on life. No,
We can now move on from ever having watched heavy metal.
Yeah. I would not recommend the suite because heavy metal is in it. But I would recommend watching at least parts of Troppo and Robot Carnival. If you don't want to watch the whole thing, which is fine.
You do. You want the gorilla fight.
You want the gorilla fight. If they probably are...
If you're gonna watch these, watch the first Fantasia, Allegro non Troppo, and Robot Carnival.
Yeah, and you'll be good.
And then go home.
Yeah.
Or watch them at home.
Whoa.
Yes.
Which you'll be able to do once that Blu-ray release of Robot Carnival.
Yeah.
Thanks to Discotheque Media. The releases of such classics as The Go Shogun movie, Fist of the North Star, Mazinger Z, the original TV show.
We're not sponsored, by the way. This is not an advertisement.
Hey, Discotheque, sponsor me.
There's no money being...
Give me some more
here.
Gus DVDs, guys.
Alright.
That'll definitely do us. It is midnight, and I should have gone to bed 2 hours ago. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Good night.
Good night,
Good
guys.
night.